The Blast from Our Past Network.
In 1983, the kids of wheelchair camp survived a night of savage madness. Now, it's 1996, and the terror has returned. Don't go to wheelchair camp, part 2. You can roll, but you can't hide. Just when you thought it was safe to go back to camp, David Irons' Don't Go to Wheelchair Camp Part 2. Out now on Amazon.
Lock your doors, close your windows, turn out your lights, for chills and thrills await you. It's time for Podcasting After Dark with your hosts, Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer. Stay with a friend, say your prayers as grisly ghouls close in to seal your doom. Tonight's episode, The Hidden, starring Kyle MacLachlan, Michael Nouri, and Claudia Christian.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcasting After Dark. I am one half of the pad team, Corey, a.k.a. Sleazy C. Joined with me, as always, is my brother from another mother, Zach, the total snackage Schaefer. And Zach, I have a question/riddle for you. What do you get when you add The Thing, The Terminator, and Alien Nation together?
You get People Under the Stairs. No, I don't know. What do you get, Corey?
You get The Hidden, a.k.a. my new favorite film of all time. Woo!
It only took you almost 40 years to figure that out, so no offense to you at all. I'm glad. Welcome to the party, pal.
Welcome to the party, pal. Now, you know, in I guess your defense, you've been shouting this movie from the rooftops for years. I think you even mentioned you were probably going to bring it to the show one of these days, but our good pal Robert Ortiz beat you to it. He is our executive producer for this episode. If you join our Patreon at the highest tier, you too can be executive producer of the show and basically pick the movies for us to review. Now, Rob's had a great lineup in the past. He's given us Excalibur.
And Suburbia.
And so, I think that was his first one. He also gave us Six String Samurai, Godzilla, the original Godzilla, way back in the day. He's got a great taste.
He sure does, and The Hidden is, in my opinion, the best of the bunch. Not gonna lie, it's one of my all-time favorite action, sci-fi, horror films of all times. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it because I've seen it so many times, and so glad, Robert, you brought it to the table. And again, you want to have the street cred like Robert Ortiz, sign up to our Patreon, patreon.com/podcastingafterdark, and join the fun today.
Now, Zach, I'll get into my history with the movie, which we all kind of suspect what it is.
About a week.
Yeah, but what's your history with the film?
Oh gosh, well, I remember when Fangoria was hyping it up in their magazine, and they had a picture of that disgusting turd worm that really looks like a hairball from a cat, if you think about it, with tentacles.
With tentacles,
yeah. And I remember being really grossed out by that. And then I saw the movie in the theater with mi madre. For those of you that don't know what I'm saying, I just said my mother. And so, I saw it in the theater with my mom. I loved it. I was pleasantly surprised at the time that the gore wasn't too much, because I wasn't a huge fan of gore. I was hoping there would not be a lot of gore for this particular type of movie. I was hoping it would be more action based, which it was. And, Fangoria really sold the gore scenes. And then now watching it, almost 40 years later, it brings me back to my youth again. And for all good reasons.
Yeah, and you were, since I was 9 when it came out, that means you were, 12, 11, something like that?
Yeah, I was 11, 10 or 11, because it came out, it came out in October of 87. Perfect Halloween movie. So I would have been 11 at the time.
Yeah, so I don't know why this never crossed my path before. It seems like my dad would have really loved this one. He didn't like horror movies, and let's all agree that the cover sort of builds up the horror element more than I think the movie actually delivers in that regard.
Yeah, it's way more action. IMDb classifies it as dark humor. I don't think it's dark humor. I think it's an action drama with elements of humor and elements of horror in it, and sci-fi, elements of sci-fi. It's one of those hybrid movies, like Predator. Some people call it an action movie. Some people call it a sci-fi movie. Some people call it a horror movie.
My nephew would call it a horror movie.
Yeah, your nephew definitely would. No, I think this movie also, while it was hidden back in the day, it's more buried now because, Warner Brothers put out a bare bones archive disc, which archive translates to crappy transfers for a lot of their movies. This one's okay. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah. It's a little grainy. It was okay. There's no special features on there except for a director's commentary, which is always nice, but I didn't have the time to go through that,
Yeah, it's cool that they have that. I would love to see Vinegar Syndrome or one of these companies put out a better version of this movie, and hopefully it'll get one down the road.
Yeah, Zach, it kind of goes to our discussion, this ongoing discussion that we have on this podcast about movies that were once cult and then become mainstream, like John Carpenter's The Thing. I feel like this has gone in reverse. I feel like this was more mainstream back in the 80s and the 90s, and now it's become more cult, probably because no one's put out like a big edition of it or something like that. But maybe it was more mainstream back then because I feel like it was on HBO all the time or one of those, movie services back in the day. Like it was kind of like a mainstay of that.
Yeah, it was a mainstay for sure. A main. No, sorry, that went nowhere. Yeah, I feel like it's way more cult now. This could be easily a crossover movie for $2 late fee and podcasting after dark because it's got a killer soundtrack as well, and we will definitely dig into the soundtrack as we discuss the breakdown of the movie. I also wanted to point out that I watched this movie during the pandemic. When they were doing those watch parties, Amazon watch parties. So Jim Walker, who did the theme song to $2 late fee, and well, it's really to 3 o'clock high, but it's a theme song to $2 late fee. And I think Dustin and his wife, we all did a watch party because Jim Walker was like, hey, let's watch a movie together during the pandemic and get through this. And I'm like, what do you want to watch? And he's like, well, whatever's free on this Amazon watch party thing. And have you ever seen The Hidden? I'm like, yeah. So we watched it then, and I remember all of us saying yeah, this movie's so mainstream. It is legit mainstream in a good way,
Yeah. Did Kristen watch it with you during that watch
party?
Oh,
yeah, she loved it, too.
She loved it.
She wasn't grossed out by it. She didn't really, the gore scenes happen so quickly, they're almost blink and you miss.
Yeah, and they're not really that gory to begin with. There's a lot of squibs, and there's actually good squibs. I like the squibs that they use. But the alien tentacle face that happens early on in the film, it's not really that gory. So real quick, I'll just kind of, like I said, explain my sort of history with it. I don't know why it never hit me. I recognize the cover like crazy, obviously, from the VHS days and everything. I just never, I guess, picked it up. I don't know if maybe, I was just was thinking it was going to be more action when I wanted more horror, or maybe vice versa or something. I will say when so I'm sitting down to watch it for the first time. I am so thrilled because I'm so excited. I've heard so much about this from Rob. I've heard so much about this, from you. And I do think you had mentioned at one point possibly doing this as a crossover a few years ago. And I was like, cool. So I got super baked. I am bopping halfway through the movie. I realized that I love this film. It's already one of my favorite movies of all time halfway through it. And we'll obviously get into why. But then also halfway through it, I realized, I wonder when they're going to get to that cruise liner and the cat. And then I realized that I'm thinking that I'm watching The Uninvited the entire time, not The Hidden. I was like, I didn't watch the wrong movie. I watched the right movie. But in my head, I confabulated the two movies together, The Hidden and The Uninvited, which I guess, I've never seen either. But Zach, they're sort of similar though, aren't they? There's something inside of hiding inside of a person or a creature in The Hidden.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
the Uninvited.
Yeah, the Uninvited and The Borrower. I think The Borrower with Radon Chong was actually in that back in Tom Towles. And there's a classic, image of Tom Towles with sunglasses on. And
So that I've actually seen, and it's on my like Amazon list, waiting for it to go on sale because Shout Factory put it out. But that's actually on the Podcasting After Dark like to-do list, is The Borrower, because I did watch that back in the day.
oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, this movie doesn't like necessarily break new ground with the concept of the aliens taking over your body, but what it does do is gives you 97 minutes of like pure, pulse pounding.
Yeah, but the Uninvited is a bit more horror centric than this is, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Is that one worth checking out?
I haven't seen The Uninvited in a really long time, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. I'm going to say yes, question mark.
Okay. All right. Well, Zach, we got an insane cast and crew to get through. We're just going to talk about, I think, 5 of the main cast members, and then we're going to basically pepper in the other ones throughout the movie. But pretty much this entire cast is just freaking packed with awesome actors.
Yeah, it really is. I first want to start with the lead, which is, it's kind of co-leads, Kyle MacLachlan and Michael Nouri. And I think if you don't know who Kyle MacLachlan is, then you clearly are not a fan of anything cult related, because he's the poster child for,
Well, he was Paul Atreides in Dune, the David Lynch version.
Well,
and then,
he's
of course,
the poster
Twin
boy
Peak.
Yeah, so he's David Lynch's, golden boy.
Yeah.
Blue Velvet, Twin Peaks, Dune, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Portlandia, for those of you that live up in Oregon.
Oh, I've only seen a few episodes of Portlandia. I didn't know he was on there, but that's great.
Oh, he's the mayor. Yeah. And most recently,
awesome.
I think he was in the first season of Fallout, the first couple of episodes of Fallout.
Yes, he was. Yeah, I did watch that. He plays a big character, but not a character that's in it a lot.
Yeah, exactly. But don't want to spoil it for people who've seen it.
Yeah.
Haven't seen it yet. Michael Nouri is a legendary actor. I think 80s people will know him from Flashdance. But most recently, he was on Yellowstone. He had a pretty interesting story arc on that show. So he's a legendary dude.
So I'm not too familiar with him. I haven't seen Flashdance, since the 80s. And you look through his stuff now, it's a lot of like NCIS and things like that. So like I know the name Michael Nouri, but like I'm not really at all familiar with his work. And I know that he was also up for the role of Martin Riggs, but he turned it down, I guess, for this. I fucking loved him in this movie. I thought his acting was outstanding. I love everything he was doing, and I was like, he contributed to this becoming my new favorite movie of all time, because I absolutely loved him in it.
Yeah, I could see why. His character is similar to James Caan's character in Alien Nation, which came out a year later. Mm-hmm. That grizzled cop, the seasoned veteran, very likable, but just hardened, Yeah. And he's so great.
But Zach, he would have been a very different Martin Riggs than what we got.
I mean, it wouldn't have been the same, right? Like,
No.
You can't even... Michael Nouri reminds me a little bit of, oh God, what's his name? He was in Gleaming the Cube and Scarface.
Well, I'll say what he gave me shades of was Chris Sarandon. I was getting Chris Sarandon vibes, and maybe it's like the curly dark hair or something,
I think it is that, and like Stephen Bauer is another guy who looks very similar to Michael Nouri. Yeah, all those guys look kind of similar in that way, just like that older, handsome Italian guy.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a good-looking dude.
Claudia Christian has a relatively small role in this, but it's very memorable as Brenda Lee Van Buren. And she is, of course, known, I think, mostly from Babylon 5. And apparently this movie prepared her for that. But I also want to shout out her movie Hexed with Ari Gross. If you want to see a funny kind of parody of, horror films, Hexed is a good one.
Yeah, and then we last week you heard us talk about her on TV Obscura because she was in the pilot episode of The Highwayman with Sam Jones. Although her character gets replaced in the series, but she was sort of his handler in that. So it's just kind of funny that we get two Claudia Christian roles sort of back to back. But I mean she's been working forever, and she also does a lot of like video game voices and stuff like that. Apparently during the shootout scenes in this movie, she got a kind of, I think her cornea got hit by, I guess, like a piece of the the powder that's fired from the blank and everything like that. And yeah, apparently that kind of hurt, probably hurt like a motherfucker.
Yeah, and apparently she has like some PTSD from that, because whenever she would do like shooting scenes, she kind of wince and turn away because of that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, man, she does a lot of video game voice work.
She does, and I know she's still good friends with a PAD alumni from Babylon 5 as well, and Night of the Living Dead, our good friend
Patricia Tallman. Yep, go check out our interview with Patricia Tallman and follow her on Instagram and Facebook. She's awesome. She's great people.
She's probably listening to this because she's like, "Oh, my friend is in this."
Yeah, they're good friends still. Yeah.
Another standout character actor who's in this that I love is Edo Ross. He plays Cliff. He's on the poster art of this. He's the guy with the vacant face on the, half face of this on the poster. He's so good. I mean, Edo Ross, I shouted him out in Red Heat, which we... on
pseudo discussed.
Yeah, sort of discussed on 80s Kids Unite in regards to our crossover Arnold Schwarzenegger episode. But I think, talking about Lethal Weapon again, he was in Lethal Weapon, Jesus Christ, man, when Mr. Joshua burns the cigarette in his hand or whatever.
Yep. He was also in Universal Soldier. He was also in Dick Tracy, a movie that I love. I haven't seen it in forever, but I love that movie. But we talked about Edo Ross on TV Obscura as well a couple years ago in the Men in Black cartoon, because he played, I think, Zed in the first season. Now, when Zach and I talked offline about who we want to basically load the top of the episode with versus who we wanted to pepper in, like, it's the billing on this movie, like Edo Ross is like under Clarence Felder, under Clu Gulager and stuff like that. But the reason I want to call him out is at the beginning of the movie, when they're talking, and I'll bring it up again, but when he delivers that sort of that pseudo monologue to the doctor about DeVries and about all the people that DeVries killed, as they're like walking down the hallway, like I was blown away by him delivering it was like an entire paragraph of listing things off, and he just nails it so well that I'm like, fuck it, I want to call Edo Ross out on this thing because he is awesome in this movie. Yeah,
he's not like the first of the alien abducted bodies, but he's one of the most memorable, and it's a bummer when he gets what happens to him in the movie,
when he gets hidden.
Someone who doesn't get hidden but they get shot in the gut and probably die because of it.
Dick, bro.
Shot in the dick is Richard Brooks, who plays Sanchez. We shouted him out on G versus Z back in the day on one of the first episodes of TV Obscura, but I think most people will know him from Law and Order, but I know him from this, G versus Z, and Shocker.
Yep, and I want to shout out the episode of Firefly where he plays a bounty hunter named Early. Like the best episode of Firefly, one of the best episodes of TV I've ever seen, and I think the only episode of Firefly that actually didn't air on TV, so you have to see it on the DVD. But he is outstanding in that. That was sort of my introduction to him years ago, and then anytime he popped, well, technically my introduction to him was The Crow, City of Angels, but we won't talk about that. But anytime he pops up, I'm like, dude, it's Early from Firefly.
I mean, he elevates every movie he's in. And then you realize, this isn't the guy who's always serious on Law and Order. No. He got to start way back before Law and Order, and love him.
And you mentioned on IMDb the dark humor category of this that we don't really think it falls into. I think the only humor that we do get from this movie is from his character Sanchez, especially later when Beck is like, do you have any plans for dinner, when he's talking to Gallagher? But Sanchez is like, no, I'm going out with the ladies. And Beck's like, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah, I mean,
was like, that's great.
There are funny lines in this. I wouldn't call it a comedy, by
No.
any means. They're just funny lines, just like there's funny lines in Lethal Weapon. You wouldn't call Lethal Weapon a comedy. It's the same element, it's the same energy.
Life has funny lines here and there, but I wouldn't call life a comedy. And by life, I
No.
mean just like our existence,
Right, exactly. The director, Jack Sholder, who is, I think, a very underappreciated director, has done a bunch of really, really good movies. Alone in the Dark is a great horror film from the early 80s. He did the Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 film.
Which I personally think is underrated. For me, what I love about Friday the 13th Part 2, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, is that when you look at it after the other ones have been made, it's like when Zach and I talk about that period of time between Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, and how there's these interesting zombie movies in that era because people haven't quite figured out the rules yet, or George Romero hasn't laid down the rules yet. Whereas with Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and then 3, 4, and on, Freddy is like, we understand how he is. But if you go back and rewatch Part 2, it was kind of like an open playing field, and be like, we don't like, and the director, I think, didn't really know where things were going to go. And yes, I know it's, the gay allegory thing, which I love. I don't mind it. But I like what they're doing with Freddy in that movie. And I think it's an interesting take and kind of doesn't feel canonical anymore, but that's what makes it interesting to me.
Yeah, it's like the Halloween 3 of the Freddy series.
Yeah, perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah, well, I have my moments. Or like the Jason X. No, kidding.
Hey.
I know you love your Jason X.
I know. Real quick, I do want to call out, he did do an episode or two of that Mortal Kombat TV series.
Yeah, I mean, look, his credits range from big screen movies. He did Renegades with Lou Diamond Phillips and Kiefer Sutherland, another buddy cop movie, like one guy's from one side, the other guy's from the other. That was okay. I do remember not like loving it. But he, by the way, real quick, another Pad movie that we've covered, he was the editor on The Burning. Ooh, yeah, absolutely. And I do want to point this out too, because I bring it up in the upcoming, depending on when this episode drops, I bring it up in the interview that we just dropped with Finola Hughes from Staying Alive and Aspen Extreme. He directed the TV movie Generation X, the X-Men film from 1996. Finola Hughes plays Emma Frost in that, by the way. Like, she got so excited when we brought that up to her. So, and he directed it.
Yeah, no, I saw that when I was going through it this morning, and I was like, oh my God, we got to bring that up.
Yeah, I mean, he's done some really good stuff. I think he's underappreciated, especially for this movie. And I think the writing is underappreciated for this movie.
Oh, the writing's great.
Yeah, Jim Koof. He has, as a screenwriter, he's written quite a few projects from a lot of TV stuff as of late. But way back when, he wrote Secret Admirer, which is a great 80s sexy comedy, with Kelly Preston and C. Thomas Howell and oh gosh, what was her name? Every time I hear the bars go gagoong. Oh, Lori Loughlin. Yeah. I mean, he's been around for a really long time. He did the Boogans, which I know David Irons really loves the Boogans, and he wrote Stakeout, another buddy cop movie with Richard Dreyfuss and Emilio Estevez. Disorganized Crime, which is another very underrated comedy. Don't be surprised if that pops up on $2 late fee down the road. Disorganized Crime is fantastic.
And TV-wise, he's actually written a lot of Angel, the Angel series, which is, a spinoff of Buffy. But he co-created or straight up just created that Grimm TV series, which I used to watch. And I actually think Sholder directed an episode or two of that as well. But he created Grimm.
Oh, nice. That's really cool. And he wrote Rush Hour. I think that's one of the more famous mainstream Jackie Chan movies, and Operation Dumbo Drop. Hey, look, a job's a job.
That's right.
I'm going to point out the composer of this movie because while the soundtrack is really good, I think the music for it, the actual score is very underrated as well. This whole film is like everything's underrated, but the composer is Michael Convertino. He has a lot of, mainstream stuff like Bed of Roses, Jungle to Jungle, Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, an underrated movie as well. Milk Money, Guarding Tess. I mean, like, you go down, and oh my gosh, how could I miss this? This is a really big deal, and it ties into $2 late fee. He composed the score for Aspen Extreme, the movie that we're covering this month on $2 late fee. And Finola Hughes. Wow, there's all this crossover. It's a crossover within a crossover.
Yeah, I was going to say, good job, Rob. And it's perfect because you've talked about this movie being a crossover one. So this is a mini impromptu crossover episode. I'm going to call out the director of photography, the DP, Jacques Haitkin. He was the cinematographer on My Demon Lover with Scott Valentine, who we interviewed way back in the day. He was also a cinematographer on Cherry 2000, which is a great movie. And, of course, Shocker.
Don't be surprised if Cherry 2000 shows up on one of these, whether it's... Oh, and he's a DP for The Ambulance and Shocker. Hello?
That's what you said, Shocker.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
You were stuck on Cherry 2000.
I was stuck on Cherry 2000. I was stuck on Quiet Cool also.
Yeah, he's great. He's got some good stuff. In the 90s, it looks like he did mostly straight-to-video action movies, though.
Yeah, I mean, look, the guy... what he has in the 80s is fantastic.
Oh, hell yeah. But speaking of fantastic, do you want to dive into this fantastic movie? Because I think we're going to have a lot to talk about between all the other actors we're going to mention in the movie when they pop up. And there are a ton of them and so much awesome action set pieces in this to discuss as we go through the breakdown. So you want to just get into it?
Well, first I want to lick my lips very grossly, and then say,
look in the mirror
and say, yes, I want to be president.
Bye.
I want this car.
Jonathan Miller would never do anything to break the law.
I need the keys. Thank you. Bye.
He is a very fine, very honest gentleman.
Something strange is happening to some ordinary people.
Yeah, that's Jack. Real nice man. What'd he do, rob a bank?
He's a law-abiding taxpayer minding his own business. Killed 12 people, wounded 23 more, stole 6 cars, most of them Ferraris. If anybody deserves to go that way, sure in the hell's him. I worked homicide for 13 years. Now, I have never seen anything like this. You trying to tell me that she's part of this?
Step out of the car slow.
I want answers, and I want them now.
Explanation won't help you.
I want to know why it takes 15 shots to take down some sold-out stripper. Why 3 law-abiding citizens all of a sudden go crazy and start killing people. We talking spacemen here?
Something gets in his way, he kills it. Finds a body, gets inside, uses it to move around.
Try for one on the tire. Do you think this is easy? Why don't you try?
Bye.
I guess a career in the police didn't really prepare you for this, did it?
The hidden.
You think it's over now? You're wrong.
The movie opens with the New Line Cinemas logo. God damn it, I miss New Line Cinemas so much. I mean, they're still around, right? But I just feel like we don't see any movies. Are they still around?
Well, I don't think they are. I know they got absorbed by Warner Brothers, and I mean they were an offshoot of Warner. Well, wasn't New Line New World, and then New World became New Line? I mean, this is a deep dive we can go on, I'm sure, on episode of like 80s Kids Unite.
Yeah.
You know, and for those of you out there, 80s Kids Unite is basically powered by patrons as well. You suggest a topic, patrons only can suggest topics to be featured on 80s Kids Unite. Like, for example, you might suggest favorite
movie cinema
video
logo or studio logos.
Studio logos from the 80s, opening studio logos like TriStar and Carlco and Orion, et cetera, and of course New Line. New Lines, they changed once we got into the 90s. Everything changed.
Yeah, but famously New Line, the house that Freddie built, and of course, you know, Bob Shaye runs New Line, so it makes sense that we're going to see Lynn Shaye in this movie in a little bit. So credits and a cool little card play over black and white security footage at a bank. People are going about their business when all of a sudden a man in a trench coat walks in, looks around, then guns down 4 cards. He grabs 2 bags of money that they were carrying and walks out of the bank, but not before looking at the security camera and smiling and then shooting it. Now, Zach, this intro, this opening is awesome. Not only the fact that it's just this one stationary camera, people are going about their business, but I love the logo that kind of like goes by, you know, the title card, because in the title card is like clips of the movie that we're about to see, but it's in color, you know, while the rest of it is all black and white. And like, what do you think about? We've seen that technique before, where the logo or the title card will have like shots of what we're going to see later on, you know, in it. Do you like that?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is way before people were popping boners over, you know, the openings to David Fincher's films, you know, with like Seven and Fight Club, and like, oh my God, he's so ingenious with his opening credits. And he is for sure. But this is awesome. And the font for the hidden is like bright green against the like neon green against the, you know, black and white of the camera feed. And in a camera feed is really creepy, and the music is really creepy. There's something about watching, you know, like found footage, basically, you know, you're watching this unfold in real time, essentially. And it's terrifying. Like, what if They Live was shot this way, you know, just on the camera feed, and you just hear, you know, Roddy Piper saying his stuff? That would actually be a cool alternate take on that scene in They Live.
Yeah.
But that being said, the guy shooting everyone, pulling the trigger, of course, is Chris Mulkey. And Chris Mulkey is, like, at the time was, I would say, well known, very well known. He was in Runaway, and of course Dreamscape, baby. So, funny story. We interviewed Peter Jason, and we talked about, you know, Dreamscape and everything, but we made a shirt because, back in the day we were kind of making shirts for every episode. And one of the things we said in Dreamscape was Babcock and Finch, Finch and Babcock, Babcock and Finch, Finch and Babcock. What did he know, bitch? You know, and it was funny because it was actually, we realized the subtitles were in error, because we think he says, what did he know, Finch? But the subtitle said bitch. And so we made a shirt of that, and we actually sent it to Peter Jason and 2 of them, and one for Chris Mulkey, and we have a picture of both of them wearing it. Chris Mulkey looks confused. Peter Jason looks very excited, probably excited that somebody made a shirt, you know, of his, you know, character. Peter Jason's always just happy. He seems that way anyways.
Yeah, but maybe we'll get Chris Mulkey on the show one of these days.
I mean, I had an opportunity to have him on over a year ago for like $2 late fee. A guy who's representing actors, and he's like, I can get you Chris Mulkey right now. I'm like, I got nothing to put him on for right now. So will that circle back and have him on? Yeah, I wouldn't see why not. Yeah, sure.
I think he mostly does like a musician. I think he's more of a musician these days, Chris Mulkey.
Yeah, he still does movies. He just, you know, he was prolific in the 80s, though. He was everywhere.
Yeah, he was. Outside the bank, the man guns down another guard, then gets into his black Ferrari, pops in a heavy metal cassette, and speeds off. And then, I wrote, we see the man is Jack DeVries, played by Chris Mulkey. Now, I do remember Rob kind of boiling this movie down to the fact that, like, he's like, man, it's just about this alien who just wants to party all the time, like, drive fast cars and listen to, you know, crazy heavy metal soundtrack. Like, and it's funny because it's truly all this, the motivation for the antagonist of this movie is literally that, is to have fun 24/7 and to kill anyone who tries to stop him from doing it.
I mean, wasn't that the 80s?
Pretty much. The cops give chase through downtown LA, and most of this is shot in LA and around LA, as DeVries causes as much chaos as he can. He evades the police and ends up driving through MacArthur Park, where he runs over an elderly man in a wheelchair. It's great because the lady pushing him doesn't try to get him out of the way. She just screams and jumps out of the way.
It's one of the greatest, like, oh my God moments. Actually, the first 5 minutes of this movie are all filled with oh my God moments.
Dude, I mean, if you don't love this movie in the first, like, seriously, 4 or 5 minutes of the film, I don't know, you don't love fun.
Yeah, I mean, this like checks the boxes off. That's what horror, this is like exploitation in a mainstream way.
Yeah, it really is. Cut to Detective Tom Beck, played by Michael Nouri, talking to DeVries' neighbor about the suspect. The neighbor says he's a nice guy, a quiet guy, a real gentleman. He hasn't seen DeVries in about a week, though. Just then, Tom's partner, Cliff Willis, Edo Ross, comes running up to let him know that they are chasing DeVries through West Hollywood. The two men run back to their car. And of course, it's good to start layering in this whole concept that DeVries was of course, they kind of overdo it. They're like, he's a real gentleman. And of course, you cut to him being completely crazy. But that's the point of this movie, is why are these normal people going crazy like this? Cut back to the high-speed chase. This time we see DeVries run over two guys carrying glass across the street.
That's
kind
hilarious.
of a cliche prank, but done really well.
I mean, I guess herein lies the comedy part of this movie, because that was really funny.
It was. I mean, two of the funniest things are in the beginning of this movie with the mayhem of this, the guy in the wheelchair, and then this right here. But it does take a more serious turn as the movie sort of goes along.
Oh yeah. I mean, ultimately, this is terrifying if you think about it. But it just, it's in the same way of like in Vigilante when the one Frank Pesh is running away from the good guys and he pushes that guy over in the wheelchair. You're like, that's really messed up, but actually funny too.
It's kind of funny. It's funny because we're watching it and we're not the people getting run over.
Yeah, exactly.
Cut to a police barricade down the road. There are about 6 cop cars in the way, with 20 or more officers with shotguns holding the line. Detective Sanchez, Richard Brooks, is among them. Beck and Willis arrive and join the barricade. Sanchez fills them in on the situation. We see the black Ferrari crest over the hill with 2 black and whites in pursuit. All the officers at the barricade aim their shotguns down the road. Instead of slowing down, DeVries speeds up and the officers open fire. We see inside the car that DeVries takes multiple hits but doesn't die. Everyone dives out of the way as the Ferrari smashes into the barricade in spectacular fashion. It rolls to a stop and everyone aims their guns as DeVries gets out of the car. He is unfazed by the wounds he suffered. DeVries looks at them and laughs as the officers open fire. The Ferrari explodes, sending the suspect flying through the air. And I put in my notes in all capitals, what an opening. What an amazing opening scene.
Yeah, it's really cool. It cuts from like the music that's being played in the car, this heavy metal music that's like sounds almost like Iron Maiden, to like no music, but then when they cut to the police barricade, that's when the score kicks in, which is like, I love that, like the ding ding, like that kind of they do it in Aliens as well, that, I don't know, that sound, that jingle or whatever, but like it's almost like the signal, like this is intense, and the barricade looks badass. Like these guys look badass. Richard Brooks is a really cool badass actor, like his tone of his voice and everything. So this scene it just feels like testosterone filled in a good way, like it feels really like, yeah, these guys are going to get him. And then what ends up happening is so over the top and wild. And you're like, oh, this is not what I thought was going to happen.
No, and the villain, the antagonist, has no regard for anyone else's life because, to him, we're all just aliens and insects. So what does he care? He's got no connection to us. But you don't know that at the time. If anything, this plays right now like a fantastic sequel to Terminator.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, like he's the Terminator right here. Like he can take so much hits and everything. It's amazing.
Yeah, agreed. By the way, they did make a sequel to The Hidden with Raphael Sabarge, a guy I had on $2 late fee.
I heard it's not great, and by I heard,
No.
I saw the IMDb rating, and this is like at a 7, and then that's like at like a 2.9.
Yeah, it's not that great.
I mean, the cover doesn't even look that good. So
No.
cut to the hospital, and DeVries is hooked up to life support. We see his face is covered in burns. The doctor says to Beck and Willis that his condition is deteriorating. He probably won't last the night. Beck says good, and walks out of the room with Willis and the doctor following. The doctor says no one deserves to die like that. It doesn't matter what the person has done. Willis says without breaking stride, and I'm going to attempt this because it's fucking amazing. It's like literally, dude, if I was in acting school, this would have been my monologue. He killed 12 people, wounded 23 more, stole 6 cars, most of them Ferraris, robbed 8 banks, 6 supermarkets, 4 jewelry stores, and a candy shop. 6 of the ones he killed, he carved up with a butcher knife. 2 of them were kids. He did all that in 2 weeks. If anybody deserves to go out that way, it sure in the hell was him. And you know what, guys? I'm not going to edit my mistakes out because I want you to see how hard it is to nail that line. He's doing it while walking down the hallway, and the camera's following him the whole time, and there's no cut whatsoever. The doctor is left speechless as they get in the elevator.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And the way his, again, with, voices like Edo Ross's voice, the delivery, the tone, all of it's so good.
Yeah. At the police station, Lieutenant Flynn, who's played by Clu Gulager, Zach will bring up some things by him in a second, is talking to Lieutenant Masterson, Clarence Felder, in his office about needing someone to protect a senator that's running for president. So, Zach, you talk about Clu Gulager, I'll talk about Clarence Felder.
Well, Clu Gulager has been around since like the 50s, I believe, is when he started acting. And, I think most people know and love him from Return of the Living Dead, but he started out in Westerns back in the day and loved to wear a cowboy hat. And I only know that, and Corey also knows that, because he used to be a mainstay at the New Beverly here in Los Angeles, Quentin Tarantino's movie theater, but he would be there for Grindhouse nights. Like every Tuesday night, he loved the horror genre, and he would always be in the front row. And Corey and I have a picture floating around somewhere back in the day. It was the screening of like Michael Bihn's movie, I think.
Yeah, The Victim or something like that, like 2005 or whatever it was. Yeah,
and Clu's son, who directed The Feast or whatever.
Yeah, Feast and the second Piranha movie.
Yeah,
of the remake. The Piranha remake,
Double
the
D
second
or
one.
whatever.
Yeah, 3 Double D or something. Yeah.
Anyways, Clu was there, and he was very gracious, took a picture with us, and that was it. But apparently he's got a really sick sense of humor and loves to draw penises on everything. So I feel like, does Lee Germani have a story about that? I feel like Lee might have a story about that, but he loves like pointing out penises and drawing penises on things. So, he's got a 12-year-old mind at heart, and rest in peace to Clu Gulager. But he's great in this. He's very subtle. He's done every genre that you can think of, and including this one. He's great in this.
Yeah, no, he's not in it much, but he's awesome as always. And then like it's funny because of, again, how the billing is on IMDb, because Clarence Felder is down further, but he's in it much more than Clu Gulager is. But you've seen him in After Hours. Zach, I know you love that movie. He was in Hill Street Blues. He was in, obviously he was in The Hidden, but he's in an episode of Hooperman. He was also in The Dream Warrior, Nightmare on Elm Street. He's been in just a ton of stuff up to and including Dream On and Alien Nation, the TV show.
It's impressive. Most impressive.
So because I had to kind of throw those names in there, I'm going to just reread that sentence again. At the police station, Lieutenant Flynn is talking to Lieutenant Masterson in his office about needing someone to protect a senator that's running for president. Masterson says Tom Beck is the best detective he has, but if he gives him to Flynn for a special assignment, Masterson is afraid he'll never get him back. Masterson is trying to push Willis, who, Edo Ross's character, onto Flynn, but Flynn doesn't want him. Masterson says Willis is better now. He's been with Beck for over a year and no incidents. Flynn stands up and says with a sigh, "Send Beck to my office, John." by. Now, I like that there's this backstory about Willis that we don't really know much more about, but other than the fact that he's a good cop, he did something that he messed up on. Maybe it was a bad shooting or something, but he hasn't done anything wrong in like a year. But Beck is still the best cop that they have in the precinct, according to Masterson.
Yeah, I feel like there was probably something left out, either on the cutting room floor or in the original script that probably gave him more character building in the movie. Like by simply dropping that line, they don't really come back to it ever after that. However, Willis will become one of the hidden, and you know, if this movie was 20 minutes longer and then they said, well, yeah, this his track record, it kind of justifies why he did what he did, if they were not sure yet if he had been hidden or not, so I don't know. I feel like it's a really cool moment and I'm glad they included it in the overall movie, but it kind of doesn't, it just gets dropped after this.
Yeah, it kind of does get dropped, but I like that it's there as far as world building go. Because, again, it goes back to like A New Hope with Obi-Wan just mentioning the Clone Wars. There's this idea that, there's history to the movie, to these characters before the movie begins, and that is what makes great world building.
Being hidden.
Hidden. As Flynn leaves Masterson's office, we see FBI agent Lloyd Gallagher looking through the glass door. He walks in and introduces himself to Lieutenant Masterson. He's been following a suspect and needs help from local law enforcement. Gallagher says that Lieutenant Masterson's captain assigned him Detective Beck. Cut to Beck walking to his desk, which is next to Sanchez and catty-corner to Willis. Lieutenant Masterson walks over to Detective Beck and introduces him to FBI agent Gallagher. Masterson says Beck will be working with Gallagher for the next few days. Beck protests and says he's in the middle of a case, but the lieutenant just puts up his hands and walks back to his office. Beck says, "What do you want me to do? Drop this? Doesn't anyone say please anymore?" Gallagher says please. And Beck just looks at him and says, "How can I refuse?" The FBI agent dryly says, "You can't." And I love this. This is actually another bit of comedy that they do. Beck silently puts all of his papers in a file, gets up and walks over to Detective Brim's desk and gives them to the crestfallen officer, who says, "I haven't seen my wife in a month." Willis says, "Believe me, she's fine. I was with her last night and she said to say hello." Now, and it's just a great, because like as he's walking over, Detective Brim's like, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it." Who plays Detective Brim, Zach?
Larry Cedar is his name, and he's just one of those guys that you recognize because he's in everything, like a character actor. Sometimes he's just in the back, scenes of a TV show or a movie, or he's in a commercial. But yeah, Larry Cedar. Was he on Seinfeld at all? Was he ever on Seinfeld? I feel like he probably should have been on if he wasn't.
I feel like he should have been, but I tell you who was on Seinfeld, Edo Ross.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he played a cop. He played a cop. I think he arrested Newman, and Newman said, "What took you so long?"
Interesting. Shocker.
Yeah, exactly.
This scene is funny because he's in The Master of Disguise, by the way, with
yeah.
I love that movie.
You went to Turtle Club.
Hey, have you seen the little wieners? Hey, who's got a little wiener? Huh? It's Dana Carvey at his. It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so politically incorrect now. Whatever. It's really funny. This scene is really interesting because I just love seeing like these are scenes that probably would have been cut if they wanted to tighten it to 90 minutes exactly. But it's a great character building scene, and it kind of shows the interpersonal relationships that all the cops have, and it's done really well. All of these actors are super proficient at their game, So, and Kyle MacLachlan, there's something creepy and mysterious about him, which you're immediately like, if you went into this, I think this movie did a good job of not giving away that he was also an alien. So, before it came out.
Yeah.
It was just that he was tracking this alien. So at this point, you're like, why is this guy so kind of odd? And then you find out.
But then, like, the fact that he's an FBI agent, I think we all kind of agree that, FBI agents are kind of like the nerds of the law enforcement community. So we kind of expect them to maybe be a little bit awkward, but that also could be me looking at it in a post Twin Peaks, post X-Files lens. I don't know if maybe that was the same zeitgeist back at this time, though.
Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say, but it's, the cops are all buddies, right?
And yeah, and to your point about saying that if this scene was trimmed, to make it 90 minutes, I think it wouldn't do it justice. It wouldn't do the movie justice, because you also need to know these relationships when the police station is under siege later. Like, if that didn't happen and all these cops weren't in peril, then yeah, it wouldn't really matter. But when it comes down to it, when they are, this is why you care about them.
Yeah, they're all buddies.
Mm-hmm. Beck silently walks back to his desk and asks the agent who they're looking for. Gallagher says he's looking for Jack DeVries, and everyone looks up. Gallagher says he's been after DeVries for about a month. Beck tells him DeVries is at St. Joseph's Hospital and won't make it through the night. FBI agent Gallagher leaves the station in a hurry. At the hospital, we see DeVries still hooked up to life support. There's another patient in bed next to him, also on oxygen. All of a sudden, DeVries wakes up and quickly gets out of bed. He rips off all the monitors hooked up to the man next to him, then forces the man's mouth open. DeVries opens his mouth, and a huge insect-looking alien crawls out and then goes into the other man's mouth. DeVries then falls over dead. So 13 minutes into the film, and we know exactly what this movie's about, but there's still going to be more twists and turns to come. But I love the fact that this movie is so sure of itself that it puts most of its cards on the table right here, dude.
Yeah, and that alien looks like a nasty, wet cat hairball with antennas, like we said in the onset. Yeah, and it's wild. I miss the days of like EKG meters and all these hospital,
Yeah.
If suddenly like you hear the beeping beep and like, oh God, someone's coming in, hurry, but like this is a great setup to like what's going to happen next. And this new old white man, is an interesting character who gets a lot of screen time, by the way.
Yeah, it's another one. I've never seen him before.
Same.
Well, you're talking about him now, so we'll just mention him now. William Boyett. I loved everything he was doing throughout this entire film. I don't know. Well, he's only in it until, obviously they switch bodies again, but he left such an impression on me. Like, I loved him.
Yeah, he's been in a bunch of things. Like, I think, small roles. This is probably his biggest role he's ever had. And he played Sergeant Sacker in When the Stranger Calls, which I think that's a great name. But
okay,
that's all. I don't know him from anything else. I'd never seen him before and after, but he's been in a bunch of stuff.
I mean, he was in The Rocketeer, a movie that I love, and I don't remember him at all in it. So, yeah, and apparently he did some additional voice work in Turner and Hooch. I think he did some of the growls and stuff in it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
He kind of growls in this.
Yeah, exactly. He does kind of have that kind of voice. Cut to a doctor using a defibrillator on a man in bed. Jonathan Miller, who we mentioned is William Boyett. Nothing happens, and the nurse feels for a pulse but can't find one. The doctor uses the defibrillator again, but this time the voltage is sent back through his body, sending him flying backwards. Miller opens his eyes and sits up to the shock of the doctor and nurse. So, okay, it didn't kill the doctor.
Didn't kill the doctor, but still it's a shocker!
Outside, we see Agent Gallagher running into the hospital. Cut to the doctors talking about what happened. They have one man dead on the floor, DeVries, and another man, Miller, walked out when he wasn't supposed to be able to. Gallagher runs into the room and looks disappointed when he sees DeVries' body on the floor. He shows them his credentials. And it's interesting because, essentially that's the end of Chris Mulkey as an actor, but, his character technically keeps going on because it's the creature inside.
Right.
Cut to Gallagher going through Miller's file as the doctor explains the man's condition. Mr. Miller has an extremely bad stomach condition, severe gastritis, and his heart finally deteriorated to the point where he had to schedule a triple bypass. Yesterday afternoon, he had a massive coronary, but today it was just as if And then Gallagher finishes the doctor's sentence, got up and walked out. The doctor says he can't explain it, but he knows Jonathan Miller isn't the man the FBI agent is looking for. Miller is a very kind, very honest gentleman. He would never do anything to break the law. Now, again, so you have to take it for other characters, perspectives on DeVries and Miller, that they were good people. I feel like it's a smidge heavy-handed that the doctor would know so much about him, but I get it as far as story-wise goes. You need to have that in there.
Yeah, I mean, it allows them to not have to introduce another character and to talk about how kind and honest he is, like a granddaughter or something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, it's as far as scripts goes, it knows like how to do these things so we can keep the pacing of the movie going. And I think, Zach, what goes to how much fun this film is and how awesome it is how well paced it is. There is literally no downtime to this film whatsoever. Or if there is, it's only like 3 or 4 minutes and then we're on to something else.
Yeah, it's the dinner scene from, later on in the movie.
Yeah, I know. But I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to break that scene down. But that scene's really only like 2 or 3 minutes long. It's like super short. But it's funny that it's like probably the slowest of the entire movie. And so it feels longer.
It feels longer, and the daughter's vacant stare feels really long and uncomfortable too.
Agreed, especially at the end of the movie.
Yep.
Cut to a record shop, and Miller is openly putting the cassette tapes in his pocket. When the shop owner sees him, Miller beats the man to death with some kind of a billy club. Miller then opens the cash register, steals the cash and the gun. Then he smashes a glass case holding a boombox and walks out of the store as a girl is walking in. She sees the body of the owner on the floor.
There's a lot to talk about in this scene, by the way. One thing I meant to point out in the beginning of the movie when all the cops are in that scene where they're all talking to each other, Sanchez makes two guys shoot, right? Willis, I think, tries to shoot a basket and misses. And then Sanchez, the black guy, makes the shot. So,
yeah.
And I also want to point out, too, that Richard Brooks is a cop in this, an adult cop in this, and then 2 years later he's playing a high school student in Shocker, which is kind of funny.
I love it. I love the 80s when high school kids were played by like 40-year-olds.
Yeah, I just had to point that out. But this scene, this record store, I don't know the actual record store, but I love this record store, just the look of it. And there's a song that's playing called Weapons of Love that's so good. It's super like power pop. It's by a band called The Truth. They also play the end credit song, which is called The Hidden at the end of the movie. And The Truth is like a British pop band that had been around for quite a while, but they had a song in the movie Thrashin' with James Brolin, the skateboard movie, called Playground, which is another badass song that's played during this like skateboarding montage scene where the kids are all in Hollywood having a good time. Just had to point that out. Also want to point out the store owner calls him a wank, which is hilarious. Talking to you, wank. So funny. I'm like, what the hell is a wank? I don't care, but I think it's hilarious.
No, it's great, dude. And please call out any of the music that comes along. You know much more. Your vocabulary is more extensive and your knowledge is more extensive than mine. I'll just say that I loved everything that I was hearing. I even loved, the stripper song later that where Claudia Christian's dancing to. But a lot of it is it's either heavy metal or what did you call it? Like power pop, which is I guess is a middle ground between sort of heavy and poppy.
Yeah, I mean it's rock and roll. I wouldn't call it rock and roll. It's like that In Excess kind of sound, That's not that to me. That's power pop. It's power pop. Yeah.
Okay.
Where it's just a little bit like rock is like Y&T. I wouldn't call Scorpions metal. I think Scorpions is rock. I know some people might be like, what are you talking about? I wouldn't call them metal. Metallica is more metal. It's like the speed of it. Power pop is like a little bit. It's like a little below rock and roll. But not
heavier
much.
Than pop.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I lean towards pop and power pop, but you would not call Kyle Troy rock and roll.
No. I'm going to be the one girl.
I'm going to be the one girl. What's this asshole smiling about?
It's like that guy, Michael Damian. Michael Damian was like a pop guy in the 80s. He did the cover of Hey Kids, Rock and Roll.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Michael Damian. that bullshit. But I really like it. But still.
I was gonna say I don't hate it.
I don't hate it, but at the time I was like, "What is this?"
Is Queensryche power pop?
I mean, they were on Headbangers Ball with Jet City Woman. I would call them rock. That's just rock. Whitesnake is rock.
Yeah,
that's rock.
Okay.
It's not metal. Metal's Megadeth, and
yes,
that's
absolutely.
metal.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's no. Someone's driving off the road.
Outside, we see Miller walking down Melrose with his boombox blaring heavy metal music. He smiles when he hears the lady back at the record store scream. I like that because he's like, I gotcha.
He doesn't lick his lips, though, does he?
Here's the thing. I feel like the lip licking thing came in middle to the end of the movie.
Yeah, it's not consistent.
Yeah, that's the one thing that maybe isn't that consistent, but everything else is.
Like the acid reflux stuff that he's got going on, which triggered me a little bit because I legit had, 2 or 3 days of hiccuping nonstop. It was rough.
It was probably after you ate your juicy ropes.
No, it was after I had vegan black bean patties. And then I had them again, and then they came back, and I took some Prilosec. For those of you that deal with really bad acid reflux, Prilosec is the way to go. There's a commercial. But no, like watching him do that, I was like, oh God. But I know that's for that body that he's inside. But the lip licking continues with other characters.
Yes. And I think he does it like once with this character, but they do it sort of, they lean into it more later.
But they don't do it with Willis's character.
He does do it when he's walking up the stairs. I did notice that.
He did? Okay.
I didn't notice Claudia Christian doing it, though, Brenda.
But she should have.
Yeah, right? But I do like this idea that their bodies, whatever affliction the body has, like he's going to have to deal with it. Even though it's not going to kill him, it's going to slow him down, and we'll see it in a little bit. But I like that concept that he still has to like kind of, and he doesn't know what's happening. He's like, what's wrong with this body,
What's going on with my body?
what's wrong with my body, man? Back at the police station, Agent Gallagher tells Detective Beck that they should get started. Beck reminds them that DeVries is dead. The FBI agent takes out a photo of Jonathan Miller and shows it to Beck and says that he needs to find Miller. Beck quietly closes another case file he was working on and walks over to Detective Brin's desk and places it down. Brin says, Beck, don't put that, don't do that. It wasn't funny the first time. So
it's funny.
Maybe there is more humor in this than we were sort of,
I guess so, but I still wouldn't call it a comedy. It's just funny moments.
It's just a handful of funny moments in an otherwise.
There's comedy in Predator,
Yeah, exactly.
But you wouldn't call that a dark comedy. By the way, every time you say Gallagher, I'm just like, I want to say there's no relation to Gallagher.
Bro, you have no idea. Every time I typed it, all I could picture was fucking a giant watermelon getting crushed. And
wait, you pictured fucking a giant watermelon? That's what you pictured?
Yeah, crushing it. Dude, I mean, as a kid in the 80s, Gallagher was my jam because, it's Gallagher. It's prop comedy. And so an 8-year-old is like, that's funny,
I'm putting that out there to all you patrons who support 80s Kids Unite and come up with ideas. We could do a whole special on our favorite comedian from the 80s, stand-up comedian. Putting it out there right now. If you want to sign up to our Patreon, patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. We have 80s Kids Unite. It's a monthly series, monthly show where the Night Boys discuss a topic chosen by patrons. So you could choose 80s stand-up comedians. That would be an amazing episode. Favorite 80s stand-up comedian. I'm putting it out there right now, everyone listening, including Gallagher.
I mean, it's sad because like as I'm older, I'm saying, oh yeah, Andrew Dice Clay or Eddie Murphy. But to be honest, if I'm going nostalgic, it would be Gallagher.
I mean, Gallagher was everywhere. You could do favorite kid-friendly 80s comedian. Yeah.
He was everywhere, dude. He was huge back in the day.
And but what's sad is like I'm picturing Dave Chappelle doing it.
Yeah, I know.
Continue, please.
So Beck tells Gallagher this better be good, and then runs Miller's report. After reading it, he says, "Quite the desperado. Still handing out the death penalty for unpaid parking tickets?" He gives Gallagher back the picture of Miller and says, "I don't do traffic tickets." Beck walks back to his desk so he can get back to work when another detective comes in and tells him about the dead record store clerk on Melrose. Beck is annoyed. What is this, a full moon? In the background, we see Gallagher leave the police station. And I like that because as Beck walked away and he kind of is towards the camera and he's doing his thing, Gallagher's just sort of standing there weird because, you know, we're going to find out later there's something weird about him. But I like how he just walks out. Because he heard the information. He knows it's going to be there, you know?
Yeah. And he picked up his watermelon and walked out.
Yeah, he did. God damn it.
I'll see you later.
God damn it.
My running joke.
He shaved his head in the middle and grew out the side of his hairs and his mustache.
Kyle MacLachlan as
Gallagher. As Gallagher. Someone, you know what? Lee photoshopped that for us, buddy. Do that.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, you do that.
You do that, buddy. Meanwhile, Lee's like, I'm going to be the one girl. Why do I got to be that one?
Got to the record store on Melrose. It's now a crime scene. Beck examines the body.
It's the crime scene?
I don't know why it came out that way. It's a crime scene. I was going to roll right past it, but no, we got to call it out.
Turning into Dustin over here.
I know. Beck examines the body, and Sanchez tells him there's a witness. It's the lady that, you know, who walked in when Miller was walking out. Beck gets up to talk to her and sees Gallagher already questioning the witness. The detective asks the FBI agent what he's doing, and Gallagher says he's just checking up on some traffic tickets. Beck tells Gallagher to follow him out the store. As he does, he tells Sanchez to call the coroner down to the store. I probably should have cut that because I kind of didn't track the coroner stuff. There's just like a little sub-story, you know, but it didn't really go anywhere. And I felt like maybe, like you were saying earlier, that there was maybe something more to the coroner, but they just kind of left these little pieces in there, you know?
Yeah, they're like, we don't have time for this guy.
And it's really pointless because I actually don't really call out the coroner stuff at all later, to be honest with you.
And then just go.
What's the deal with Gallagher?
What's the deal
with watermelons?
In a coroner's office.
Hey everybody, Corey here. I just wanted to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Have you been wondering where's the beef? Well, on our podcast, Throwback Trivia Takedown, you might just find that out, as well as some other things about the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
We're a nostalgic-based trivia show that pits two challengers head-to-head in a duel of the decades, with categories ranging from movies, TV, and music, to slang, food, and fashion. You're sure to get the best in retro-themed trivia.
So strap on your jelly shoes, grab a surge, and walk like an Egyptian to your favorite podcast app and check out Throwback Trivia Takedown.
I heard even Mikey likes it.
And now, back to the show. Outside on Melrose Boulevard, Beck lays into Gallagher. I don't know what you think this has to do with you, but you're out of line. The guy you came out here for is dead. Your job here is done. I suggest you get on the next flight back to Seattle. Gallagher just watches as Beck walks back to the crime scene. Cut to the police station, and the witness is talking to the police sketch artist. He shows the drawing to Beck, and the detective puts an APB out on Jonathan Miller. Agent Gallagher walks up to Beck and says, "Shall we get started?" Cut to the two men walking through the police station with a purpose. Beck asks how Gallagher knew about Miller. Gallagher says that Miller used to work with DeVries. Doing what? Pulling illegal U-turns? He didn't have a record till 2 weeks ago. Gallagher scoffs and says he had a record long before that. Beck tells Gallagher that if he wants his help, he better start telling him what's going on. Tracking down a criminal who's come to your city. You've been assigned to help find him. It's that simple. He's very matter of fact.
It's like he's robotic.
Mm-hmm.
Robotics.
I used to love robotics, bro. I even have the comic books in my mom's basement here.
I was literally just talking about those on an episode of Territory Marks.
Oh, with Paul?
Yeah, with Paul London, because the Sunday morning cartoon block came out in October of 1985 when we recorded the episode. And it was Gem, Robotics, Bigfoot and the Monster Machines, and actually Inhumanoids was a part of that block, but it wasn't always available in every, market. But there was the Sunbow productions block.
Yeah.
And it became like Saturday morning block, I think, for some markets as well. But
yeah.
And it was premiered on a Sunday in '85. So.
And did you liked robotics when you were a kid?
I loved it. I loved the toys. I used to recreate Aliens. Because the little astronauts that would come with robotics look like the LV-426 alien astronauts in the movie Alien.
Yep. Nope. I know what you're talking about. I had the same toys. Loved all of it. Yeah, man. That's awesome.
So
I have to listen to that episode.
Robotics.
They continue their conversation outside the police station. Beck asks Gallagher if it's that simple. Why'd the Bureau send him? Gallagher gets frustrated and says, "You don't have anything on Miller because he's always changing his identity. The same with DeVries. Before that, he was Arvin Lusk in Portland, and before that, he was William Butler in Seattle. Miller does the same thing. This is the closest I've been. He's got to be stopped here before he moves again." Gallagher says they'll take his car, which happens to be a Porsche. Beck looks shocked. He gets in the passenger seat and says, "The Bureau must be paying pretty good these days." Gallagher says, "Pretty good," and peels out of the police station parking lot. As they are speeding down the road, Beck puts his seatbelt on, but we see Gallagher doesn't have one. The detective asks how much the car costs, and the FBI agent says, "I don't know." Because you don't know. What'd you do, steal it? And Gallagher cracks a smile and says, "Yes." Dude, this is awesome, man. The way he peels out of the police station. So they're already starting to create parallels between him and the alien that he's chasing, with being like the drive fast and stuff like that.
I think this is the moment you realize he's an alien too, for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you were a kid, I know it's going to be hard to remember, but when you were a kid, do you remember when you found out, or were you kind of shocked later when you found out?
No, I think that's what I knew, I think. And I'm glad they don't put the cat turd / hairball alien in his mouth later on.
Yeah.
It's a cocoon. It's actually a cocoon alien.
I know. I actually wrote that later, Cocoon Powers, which is weirdly a movie you can't get like on Blu-ray or anything. Or there's no like really good version out there. That's a movie that was like such a staple of the 80s, Cocoon.
It's like a family-friendly sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah, I think you can easily get batteries not included, but you can't get Cocoon.
And batteries not included is dark. Way darker than Cocoon.
I saw that in the theater.
Me too. And I remember like feeling sad. Didn't
they have a McDonald's tie-in or something with batteries not included?
So. But then they got the one big guy, Frank McRae, from Red Dawn. He's like, he's kind of like, for lack of a non-PC term, he's like slow, right?
Yeah.
And repairs the beat up little alien. The alien gets smashed or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I think I only saw it like once, maybe twice when it came out again on something, but I haven't seen it probably since like '89.
Elizabeth Pena's in that, and who's dead, by the way, which is so weird to me that she died young. She was like, I think maybe 50 when she passed away.
Yep. Yeah, she was.
So weird.
She was in Jacob's Ladder, right?
She was in Jacob's Ladder, La Bamba. I think she was in in Rush Hour 1 or 2. She was like the police chief or something like that. And then she just died. And I was like, wait, what? What happened there?
I remember that. Yeah, that was like 10 years ago or something.
So
crazy.
Sad. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah, it's hilarious when he peels out and you're like, no, hold on. This guy isn't from Seattle.
He's from Ryloth or whatever. I wrote it down. I still remember. Cut to Miller eating a steak in a diner with his boombox blaring. All the other customers and waitresses are giving him dirty looks. Miller looks around unfazed. Then he sees a news story on TV about the senator running for president. He'll be making a speech tomorrow at a fundraiser in LA to announce his candidacy. Miller goes back to eating, but his stomach starts bubbling and making horrible noises. He lets out a big fart and everyone looks. His waitress doesn't want to deal with him. Was this you the other day?
What, the acid reflux?
Yeah.
No, I didn't have gas. It was more just like hiccups. It was literally hiccups for 3 days. It was in the summer and we were on a road trip and I'm driving down the Bodhi's like, are you okay?
I love how like offended you were. Like, I didn't have gas. When, guys and gals, I have to cut out so many farts on this show.
You can thank my wife for that.
And I love them, by the way. I love them because I'll be editing, because a lot of times I won't hear them like through the Zoom, but like I'll be editing and I'll hear them. I'm like, and I'll kind of like pause mine to see like, was that me? I was like, no, that was Zach.
You can thank my wife for that. She was the one who made me open up and free my mind and free my butt.
And the rest will follow.
Yes. Yes. No, but this scene is like, we all know that asshole in restaurants, or it's the person who just wants to be an asshole, or the guy who literally today at the gym, this guy pulls up in his car blasting his music. And I say his music because I'm like, there's no way this is playing on the radio. It's so bad. And, but he's got to have everyone hear it. Everyone's got to listen to my music because I'm an asshole.
Yodio.
Yeah, so maybe they all are aliens from outer space.
You know what? Maybe they are.
Who just want to drive fast and be assholes.
I'm an asshole, Yodio. God, I love that CD.
Me too.
Favorite
comedian.
Yes, great comedian. Just then, Miller sees a Ferrari drive by the diner. He gets up, leaving his food and his boombox behind, and goes running after the car. I guess no one chased him, was like, well, I don't want to deal with that, so let's just let him. We're just happy that he's gone because he didn't pay or anything. Miller keeps running down the street after the Ferrari until he starts having chest pains. So I like that. And he starts like hitting his chest. I mean, it's not killing him because he's just he's powering the meat suit, basically. But I love the fact that he has to also contend with the limitations of the body that he's in.
Yeah, it's pretty funny too.
Cut to Gallagher and Beck pulling up to the record store crime scene. Gallagher asks how far the hospital is from the record store, and Beck says about a mile. The FBI agent tells the detective they'll start canvassing the street. Beck gets annoyed at Gallagher calling the shots. Gallagher says he knows how the man operates. Beck asks how he knows Miller was at the hospital. Gallagher says it's a hunch. Beck says, I suppose he was there visiting DeVries, right? Gallagher says, yeah. Beck gets frustrated and says, why don't you just tell me some of this shit so I don't have to follow you around asking 20 questions? We're supposed to be on the same team.
It's funny. Michael Nouri's so good. He's such a, I don't know. He's kind of underrated. Like I haven't seen too many movies where he's like the lead action hero guy. It was like seeing James Caan in Alien Nation too. You're like, when's the last time you saw James Caan play like an action guy in a movie? They're mostly like dramatic actors. Michael Nouri, by the way, was in GoBots in the Battle of the Rock Lords.
Oh, no shit. Who did he play?
He was Boldar.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It just,
awesome.
And I did not look that up, everybody. It just came to me because GoBots in the Battle of the Rock Lords is one of my favorite, 80s kids animated movies. He plays, Boulder, not Boldar. That would be like a He-Man character.
I was gonna say like a human character.
And by the way, that movie had a great cast. Margot Kidder was in it. Roddy McDowall, Telly Savalas was the villain. Michael Bell, of course, from G.I. Joe. Peter Cullen. Just a who's who of great voice actors, and it's not available anywhere to be found.
But maybe, Zach, if we can find it on YouTube or something, maybe we can cover it on TV Obscura as like one of our standalone episodes where we kind of just cover one thing versus 3 different shows, and we just cover that.
It was it had a theatrical release on like G.I. Joe the movie. There was a link that I think archive.org.
Well, they keep getting taken down now by some like pro-Palace or anti-Palace. I don't know. I can't keep track of all the groups, you know what I mean? But apparently archive.org keeps getting attacked by them. And I'm like, how does that help your cause?
Well, there's every release that I've seen of the only thing that is on YouTube is a terrible cut. So if anyone has access to that GoBots in the Battle of the Rock Lords, give it to us.
Yeah, and we'll cover it on the show, and we'll give you a shout out.
Yeah, and a hearty handshake.
Gallagher stops walking and says, Miller came from the hospital. He was there to see DeVries. Beck yells back in mock excitement. Oh, thank you. That is illuminating. Boy, that solves everything. Christ, Miller doesn't have a chance. Gallagher starts walking away and Beck goes after him. Hey, why would he come in here and kill a guy for a lousy $100 and a radio? Gallagher stops and says, 'cause he likes it. He sees something he wants, he steals it. Something gets in his way, he kills it. And right now, he's hiding out in your city. Beck asks, you're talking about Miller? Gallagher says, right. Beck shoots back. It sounds a lot to me like you're talking about DeVries. You don't think you might be a little confused? Gallagher shakes his head no as he walks away. And I think the movie does do a good job of peppering in these like clues. Even if you know what's happening, I still enjoy the word game that sort of Gallagher is playing with Beck, you know?
I agree. Yeah, no, I love it. It's really smart and it's really fast. You don't feel like bored at all.
Cut to Miller at a Ferrari dealership. A dealer and a potential customer drive into the parking lot after a test drive. As the two men sit in the Ferrari talking it out, Miller walks up to them and says, I want this car. The dealer says, I bet you do, dear. The dealer and the customer get out of the car and are about to head into the dealership when Miller tries to get in. The dealer says once he's done with his current customer, he'll show Miller another car.
The car dealer, his name's James Luisi, and he was in a really cool, underrated horror film, Fade to Black, back in the day. He was all over television in the 80s as well, from Riptide and Heart to Heart and Whiz Kids, which was a cool TV show. The Renegades, which was a kind of a homage to the Warriors. But anyways... the Renegades, we have to find that and bring that to TV Obscura. That could be a standalone because it's the Renegades is Patrick Swayze is like the lead actor in that. Anyways,
okay.
James Luisi, he's really like, he's got that, over tan Italian look. He looks like a raisin.
He's also in an episode of Knight Rider. He's in an episode of Matt Houston, TJ Hooker, Partners in Crime. I mean, so many shows that we've covered on TV Obscura.
Right. So good.
Again, Miller says he wants this car. The potential customer goes up to Miller and tells him not to touch the car. He's buying it. As they walk into the dealership, we see Miller get in the car behind them. The dealer tells Eddie, Dwayne Davis, to get rid of the crazy man. So, Zach, where do we know him from?
Yeah, so I recognize him the same year the movie Summer School came out, and he's the one who has to use the bathroom in the summer school and doesn't come back until the very end of the movie. And
I remember that.
Mark Harmon's like, he's like, you're in the bathroom the whole time, basically?
And of course, we saw him in Ghost of Mars.
Ghost of Mars, yeah.
And you can listen to us talk about that on Podcast After Dark's Patreon page under the Auteur de Force tier, where Zach and I went through every single movie and TV show episode that John Carpenter directed. And so, of course, we covered Ghost of Mars. David Irons was on that episode. And yeah. Ghost of Mars.
Ghost of Mars.
I think I might have liked it a little bit more than the two of you guys did.
Oh, boy. More than Beastmaster? Robert Ortiz is like, do not besmirch Beastmaster.
The hulking Eddie takes Miller out of the driver's seat and shoves him into the sidewalk. He warns the alien that he won't be so friendly next time and to not come back. Miller walks right back up to the dealership and Eddie punches him in the face. Miller takes the hit, then pulls out a revolver and shoots Eddie in the stomach. No!
I thought originally when I saw this movie, I'm like, oh, his body's going to give out at this point. But it's not. It's still ticking.
It's still holding strong. Inside the dealer's office, we see him and the customer doing lines of coke. The
80s.
They think the gunshot was just a car backfiring and go back to their business. They are interrupted by Miller knocking on the door and telling them that he wants the car.
I want the car.
The dealer gets pissed off and opens the door. He steps back as Eddie falls over dead into his office. Miller walks in behind him and says he needs the keys. The dealer tells the customer to give Miller the keys. The customer's like, hey, man, I just signed the papers. He's like, give him the fucking keys. Miller says, and you do a better job than me.
Thank you. Bye.
And he shoots both of them. It's great.
It's one thing if he feels threatened and has to kill things that threaten him, but he just kills like whatever's in his way, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I mean, it would be nice to get more idea from the alien's perspective, but my takeaway is, I mean, he doesn't give a rat's ass about us. Like, we are literally like ants to him, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Cut to Miller speeding out of the dealership and through the city in his brand new Ferrari. Cut back to the dealership some time later, and it's now a crime scene. And I won't say I can't even do it now. It's a crime scene.
It's a crime scene. It's a crime scene.
I'm Bob Dylan narrating this.
Hey, there's bugs, the human bugs. Ew.
Beck and his fellow detectives are looking at the dead bodies as they're trying to piece together what happened. The dead bodies are trying to piece together what happened. Sanchez says one red Ferrari is missing. Agent Gallagher says Miller took it. Beck asks how he knows. Gallagher says he likes Ferraris. Beck thinks for a second, then tells his men to put out a felony APB on the red Ferrari. Cut to Miller driving up Rodeo Boulevard listening to music. He slows down when he sees an attractive woman walk up to a guy in a convertible. The man makes a finger gun motion and the woman gets in the car. Miller drives down the block and sees two attractive women walking down the street. The alien tries the same finger gun move, but one of the ladies tells him to fuck off. And this is great. Miller reaches for his gun in his pocket, but by the time he gets it out, she's walked away. But I'm like, he was just going to shoot her.
Yeah. Anyways.
It's like, he's like, oh, no.
Let me get my gun out.
It's hilarious. He then pulls out the wallet that he stole from the guy who was buying the Ferrari. So that's the wallet, because they do mention at the crime scene that the guy's wallet was missing. So they're still trying to figure out that guy's ID because they didn't know him because he didn't have his wallet because Miller took it. So he pulls out the wallet he stole from the guy who was buying the Ferrari, and he sees a card for a strip club called the Harem Room and another one for a business called Anchor Imports. We see Miller drive up to Anchor Imports. Cut to Beck and Gallagher driving down the road in Gallagher's car. Beck says to his unwanted partner, "You know what bothers me about these two guys, DeVries and Miller?" Gallagher replies, "Neither has a criminal record. Both lived normal lives till a few days ago, and now they're killing people." Beck asks if he reads minds, or was that just a shot in the dark? Gallagher smirks and says that he reads minds. Beck asks what he's thinking now. Gallagher says that I'm full of shit, then says he's pretty simple to read. Just then, a light turns from yellow to red, and Gallagher punches it through the intersection. Beck looks startled.
Oh, man. The good old days when you could just run red lights and not worry about hitting anybody.
Exactly. He says, "I'd like to know if you're just doing your job or if there's something personal between you and these two clowns." Gallagher says it's personal. "He killed my partner." Beck asks which one killed his partner, and the FBI agent says both. The detective remarks that he's surprised the Bureau let him stay on the case. "I hear they're not big on revenge." Gallagher asks, and I love this line, or this little exchange. He goes, "What would you do?" And Beck's like, "As a cop?" And Gallagher says, "As a man." And then Beck says, "He lost a partner once." Then after a long pause, he says, "We'll get Miller." And I like that because you think you're just like, it's just like a little exchange, but yeah, Gallagher's like, "What would you do as a man?" Because he's not a man, he's an alien.
And then he said, "What would you do as a woman?"
And then he says, "I would fondle my own breasts."
And then he says, "What would you do as a truck?"
It says, "I would glue a giant green goblin face on my front and go drive around and kill people."
And then he says, "What would you do as a TV remote?" And he's like, just drop it, okay? Just drop it. What would you do as a small... No, we're done. We'll get the guy. Don't worry, we'll get the guy.
Cut to Miller breaking into Anchor Imports. As he's looking around the office, he rubs the breasts of a statue, then turns on the stereo.
Hey, he's every 12-year-old boy.
He really is. God, I wish I saw this when I was a kid.
I saw it with my mom. And then in about 5 minutes, it's gonna get even worse.
Dude, it's your hand that rocks the cradle scenario. Like I saw that with my dad. Oh no. Oh no.
Like Taylor Swift said, shake it off, shake it off.
So he turns on the stereo. It's playing sappy music, and he rips it out of the wall and destroys it. I love that. He doesn't turn it off. It enrages him.
He and I wouldn't get along well because I love all that. I'm like, oh, it's like Paul Anka. Oh, hey, you didn't have to do that to Paul Anka. I don't even know who it was, but it sounded like that.
Yeah. No, it's in that sort of level
Moon
of
River.
Yeah.
Schlock. I love schlock now.
He then walks into the bathroom and looks at himself in the mirror. As he does, his stomach makes gurgling noises. And this is something that they all do. Even later, Roy the dog looks in the mirror, and and so does Gallagher later. So that is something that is a bit of a through line, more so than the lip licking thing.
You lip licker?
You wank.
Talking to you. I'm talking to you, wank.
Not wanker, just wank.
Just wank. That's funny, man. That's really funny.
That's gold. Gold, Jerry. Gold.
Hey, you wank.
Miller then sees another locked door and kicks it open. Inside the small closet is a whole mess of machine guns, shotguns, and pistols.
He's Militia Mike.
He looks happy, but unfortunately, his body seems to be having a heart attack. Miller falls to the ground, and we see his veins pulsating. He rolls up his sleeve, and a tentacle shoots out of one of the veins in his arm. Miller takes some packing tape and wraps it around the hole. I was like, damn, dude, get some control over your tentacles, man.
Yeah, this is a really gross scene, especially if you're not a fan of veins popping out.
Yeah.
It's really disgusting, and all this gurgling and bubbling and everything reminds me a little bit of Street Trash after they drink Viper wine. They're just like, but this is borderline. I would consider this a gory scene because it's just like, oh, it's protruding and this gross thing. By the way,
probably the most gory scene in the movie and the most body horror-ish.
And if you want to see a real version of this in real life, go on YouTube and search up zombie praying mantis, because there is this weird worm that it infests the body of a praying mantis. It basically takes over the body, and the way you can get it out is by dropping it in water because it hates water. So people drop a praying mantis in water, and you see this black thing start to like make its way out of the body of the praying mantis. It's disgusting. It's terrifying that these things exist on our planet.
Oh, Jesus, it's almost like they're aliens, dude.
Yeah, from
That's
another
horrible.
planet.
A planet? What is planet?
Yeah,
why are we both infected by Bob Dylan tonight?
I don't know, because I'm an alien.
Cut to Beck and Gallagher looking at police reports of the people murdered at the Ferrari dealership. They see the dead customer owns Anchor Imports. They see he has a record and find out he's a low-level arms dealer. Sanchez, this is great, walks up behind him and says, "Another law-abiding citizen, huh?" Everyone quietly looks at what he's holding, and Beck asks what it is. A flamethrower, man. Can you believe it? Patrol picked it up off some homeboy on the street, because he just walks up behind him with the flamethrower casually over his shoulder and just like says, another law-abiding citizen. I love how they all three, like, because there's also a patrol officer there, they all just like look at him, you know? It's not like, hey.
I love it, though. It's a badass looking flamethrower.
Yeah.
And
dude.
It's not the last time you're going to see that flamethrower.
You know, the whole the idea Chekhov's gun, you know, you see something, you're going to see it used later in the movie. This is a prime Sanchez's flamethrower. Change Chekhov's gun to Sanchez's flamethrower.
Sanchez's flamethrower has now taken over Dirty Sanchez.
Oh my God. It's a Dirty Sanchez, but when you've had spicy food. Okay, we're dropping it.
Oh God. And Baja Blast. And Baja Blast too.
God, Jesus Christ, guys. I disgusted myself when I said it.
No! When it comes out of both ends and one is good and the other's not. Oh!
Sanchez's flamethrower. Just then the phone rings and Sanchez answers it. It's Beck's wife on the other line. Beck apologizes that he's running late. He pauses, then looks at Gallagher and asks what he's doing for dinner. Since Sanchez is standing next to the FBI agent, he thinks Beck is talking to him. He says, "Sorry, I got plans. You know, ladies." Beck dryly says, Not you, Sanchez.
I love that.
Dude, that's my favorite exchange in the entire movie.
So
and
great.
I was not expecting like sort of that much humor to be in this film. It kind of all comes from Sanchez though. Then he looks at Gallagher and who says, no plans. Beck tells his wife he's bringing someone home for dinner. Cut to Beck and Gallagher walking up to the detective's house. Gallagher pauses and looks around. Beck says, I suppose you live in a castle. Gallagher says, apartment, 1 bedroom, 1 bath. They walk in, and Beck asks if Gallagher wants a beer. The agent says, whatever you're having. Beck goes to the kitchen, and Gallagher looks around the house. He finds himself looking at a picture of Beck's daughter, then at himself in the mirror. Gallagher touches his face the same way Miller touched his own face when looking in the bathroom mirror at Anchor Imports.
Was he a female in a previous life?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. And yeah, I love that. I love the stuff that we don't know. I love that and it's not holes. It's not like plot holes. No. It's just, you just don't get the entire backstory. I mean, there could be a prequel comic to this, explaining everything. But I love it, man. This is like, again, fertile for my imagination to fill in the blanks.
Fertile.
We see Beck walk into his daughter's room and to find his wife reading their daughter a book. Who's playing Beck's wife, Mrs. Beck?
Her name's Catherine Cannon. Hey, she was on High Tide. But yeah, apparently, and Hardball, too. Look at that. And Airwolf and Riptide and Matt Houston and the new Mike Hammer. So many TV shows back in the day, but I think her biggest run was on Black Sheep Squadron. That was the show she was on. She played Lieutenant Commander Dottie Dixon.
Interesting.
Anyways, yeah, Battlestar Galactica, she played Vela. And yeah.
I'm sure Diallo knows that character.
I'm sure he does. And she's got a very recognizable face. She looks like that mom, the sitcom mom.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That 80s look. And she has that short blonde hair and everything.
That 80s look, yeah.
She was also on BJ and the Bear. She's also in an episode of Incredible Hulk. And yeah, she's got a lot of TV show stuff.
I'm sure Corey's in love with her because she, he loves that teenage mom, sitcom mom, that Linda Hamilton look.
Just because I loved Linda Hamilton doesn't. Well, no, actually, I do love her now.
I'm glad you never met my mom in the 80s. You'd be like, hey, can we go over to your house, hang out with your mom? Wait, why?
Zach, I'm going to go back in time and be your dad.
Oh. Hey, Mrs. Schaefer, can you pick up that really heavy bag of sand over there again? Oh, yeah, hold on. Let me get my camera out.
God. Oh, man. Oh, Zach's trauma is my entertainment.
Zach's trauma is Corey's pleasure.
There you go.
Entertainment, but pleasure sounds more disgusting.
It does, so it works. He kisses his wife and then hugs his daughter. Mrs. Beck asks, who do they have for dinner? Beck says, FBI. She says, well, at least they're polite. She turns around and sees Gallagher standing in the doorway watching them. Beck introduces his wife, Barbara, to Lloyd Gallagher. She apologizes. She didn't know he was standing behind them. He says it's all right and doesn't want to impose while they put their daughter down to sleep. Barbara asks if their daughter wants to say goodnight to Mr. Gallagher, but she just stares at him. Gallagher stares at him back, then leaves the room. Now, is this staring at Gallagher, Lloyd, Kyle MacLachlan, is this tied to her staring at her dad at the very end of the movie, like too long? Is this supposed to be a connection? Because I know that they rewrote the ending a little bit, and maybe it was supposed to imply that she knew that her dad was actually Lloyd at the end, or maybe
I know
he is Lloyd at the end.
He is 100%. Like,
oh wait, did the ending just change for me then?
He is. He put his body into, yeah.
I thought he uses his life force to save Beck, but you're nope. Saying to you, he was like, well, Beck's dead, and I have a chance at rebuilding my family. I'm gonna. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh. I mean, we obviously should have talked about that at the end, but I'm piecing this together now.
Yeah, so the little girl clearly sees that he's an alien. Like, she's got this JonBenet Ramsey look to her, which is very creepy. She looks like a doll.
Yeah.
Very creepy.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan. I'm actually like, it makes me uncomfortable watching the vacant stare from this little kid's face, but she does it again at the end because, yeah, spoiler, Lloyd Gallagher puts his body into Beck.
Because Beck essentially died.
Beck does die, yeah.
Wow. I thought he was saving Beck with his powers, but I know. No. But the tell is the daughter. That's the tell.
That's the tell.
Night, man, this movie's even better, dude.
Kaiser Soze. It's your Kaiser Soze.
I just got Kaiser Soze.
You just got Kevin Spacey'd. Oh,
no, bad.
Hey, do you want to come over to my house and go to a party later? Sure. When's the party? No, there is no party. Watch that documentary. That'll freak you out.
Oh God, no, thank you. I don't want to know any more about.
Here's to the ones that freak us out.
Oh, cut to Miller driving his Ferrari through Hollywood while listening to music. He has a mountain of guns in the backseat of the car. Miller sees the harem room and stops. Cut back to Gallagher eating dinner with the Becks.
I've been there, by the way.
The harem room?
Yeah.
Nice.
Previous life.
The FBI, I've been to a few in Hollywood as well. I don't think I've been to that one. I went to Girls, and
Cheetah Club,
Cheetah Club, Essential One. But yeah, I never went to the harem room because that was like on a side street off of Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, that was disgusting.
They all are, buddy. They all are. Now, but granted, like, my first strip club ever was a Baltimore strip club, so my bar was already pretty low.
Oh boy.
Night shift, baby. It was under a freeway.
I'm sure it was.
Oh my God.
Name's Candy. What?
So Gallagher, Lloyd, is getting drunk off of beer. Barbara asks him about his home in Seattle. Gallagher looks confused. Beck reminds him, we're going back to as soon as you're done here. Gallagher says, yes, I'll go home when I'm finished. Then he goes back to awkwardly eating food. Barbara asks if he grew up in Seattle, and Gallagher just points up in the air. Barbara thinks he means up north and asks where. And Lloyd says, Ras Al Hog, which is actually a star. That's actually a star. I'm just butchering it, but it is a real star that is named Ras Al Hag, because later the alien calls him Alahag, so I think it's pronounced Ras Al Hag.
Okay.
But anyways, but for us in the real world, it is really a star system that we have, we know about.
For us Americans.
I don't know why I'm like having a hard time explaining, in the real world, this actually exists, basically. It's not made up. I don't know why it took me 5 minutes to say that. And Beck looks perplexed. Lloyd then asks about their daughter. He says she's very special and asks if they love her. Beck gets annoyed and says, yes, we love her. She's our daughter. Don't FBI agents love their kids? Barbara says, Tommy, it's your mom. I'm doing Zak's mom right now. Tommy, I don't think he... And I will say, Beck gives her the be quiet look. Very strong.
Is that what we call it?
I think it's just called the asshole husband look because he kind of sticks his finger out,
Yep.
He goes on, what about you? You married? Gallagher smiles and says he was. Kids? 1. Divorced? My wife is dead. The Becks look at each other. Gallagher continues. She and my little girl were killed by the man who killed my partner. Then he goes back to eating. Barbara said she's sorry. Awkward.
So how about those Dodgers?
So I obviously I saw the parallel of the wife and the daughter, but his are dead. But again, I didn't put it together that later this would become his surrogate family.
Yep.
Wow.
And what if he forced? This is a twist. What if Beck could have lived? Well, no, because the doctor said he basically. You don't see it, but the doctor's telling the wife that he's dead or he's gone.
Yeah, I think that it's pretty apparent that I don't think Gallagher would have done this if Beck was going to live. Because by the end of the movie, they're friends. I like their friendship, and I like how it grows in this movie. I mean, think about it. It's very similar to Lethal Weapon, dude. And if Michael Nouri's reading for both, he has to see these similarities, but he chose this.
I've loved the long pause. I was just doing that on purpose. But yeah, no. I mean, it's very formulaic in that way, but like in a good way. I don't mean that formulaic in a bad way. I like it. I like the budding cop. It's also Alien Nation. It's Sam Francisco and James Caan, whatever his character's name was.
Yeah, exactly.
Bronco Bustin' Billy, whatever.
Yeah, that's why it's freaking The Thing meets the Terminator meets Alien Nation. I think that pretty much sums it up, and that's
Sure.
the elevator pitch for it essentially.
Yeah, and then people are like, "What's Alien Nation?" You're like, "I'll tell you in a year."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it does come out after this.
We gotta. Hey, anybody want to break that? We'll break that down. That movie. That would be a cool one to break down too.
I love that movie when I was a kid, and we talked about the TV show on TV Obscure. I mean, Alien Nation was like a big franchise for a short period of time. It was kind of strong in the zeitgeist.
I think if this movie didn't have the gore in it, it would have been more popular. I think those few scenes actually are what
hold it back a little bit.
Hold it back from a wider audience. The burn victim scene, Chris Mulkey being all charred to a crisp. The burn victim at the end of the movie.
Yeah, Senator Holt. Yeah, I mean, and that's a great burned body too later on.
So yeah, those scenes, the veins in the arm, all that stuff.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that kind of keeps it from being truly mainstream, but makes it the awesome movie that it is.
Yes, agreed.
Cut to Zach's favorite place, the harem room, and Miller is drinking at the bar while Brenda, Claudia Christian, dances on stage. Hey everybody, Corey here. I just wanted to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Hey everybody, I'm Tim.
And I'm Dean.
And we're the hosts of Talking Back. We're a retro-based podcast covering movies, comics, video games, and more.
Check us out every Monday where we hit the rewind button and dig into some of our favorite content from the past. We like to keep things fun, lighthearted, and informative.
Do you feel like you need more nostalgia in your life? Then check out Talking Back. We're available everywhere podcasts are found.
And now, back to the show. Miller's arm is bleeding, and he has his bag of guns next to him. Not quite sure how he got that past security, but yeah, that's fine. That's one of the few plot holes, that's sort of in it. The bartender, played by Jack McKee, you recognized him, right?
Yeah, I think that guy's, he's
character.
He always
actor
has a little character actor dude, yeah.
He looks at the blood and asks if Miller's okay. Miller says he's fine. I'm fine.
It's like spilled all over the table, by the way. It's leaked out of his the packing tape.
It has, and I do feel like the bartender would have kicked him out for that, for the blood leaking everywhere.
Hey, $1's a dollar.
True. And yeah, no one kind of really cared about that stuff back in the 80s.
No. And apparently Claudia Christian, like in the IMDb little fun facts, the director, the producers had an issue with her top half, so they wanted to make an emphasis on her bottom half.
Yes. Yes. Back when that's how we, viewed women actors,
Poor Claudia Christian. Yeah.
I mean, fine halves everywhere in my opinion, but I don't know what they're looking at.
No issue, but whatever.
But okay, It's
actually it's kind of a tame adult scene.
You can kind of see through her top, but it's really not that like pronounced. Like the sexuality with Brenda, it's there, but it's not as in your face. Well, when she's walking away later, it's in your face.
Well, that's the whole thing with their emphasis on that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But again, it could have been. I mean, if we're going for an R, anyways, it could have been a lot more. But I think it's the fact that they needed to use a strong actor for the role, and then maybe that strong actor, Claudia Christian, didn't want to get naked.
True.
Yeah. So. Miller then turns around and stares at Brenda as his stomach makes a horrible noise. Outside the harem room, we see a patrol car stop next to the Ferrari and radio for assistance. Cut to the Becks in bed together and the phone rings. The detective picks it up, then tells the person on the other end that he's on his way. Beck, now dressed, walks into the guest room where Gallagher is sleeping and wakes him up. The FBI agent looks like shit.
Wake up.
Beck hands him an Alka-Seltzer and a glass of water and tells Gallagher they found the Ferrari. The FBI agent bites the tablet and Beck tells him to put it in the water and drink it. Beck shakes his head and walks away, but stops and says, "Lloyd, as a friend, stay away from alcohol."
I love that now because they know his history. He's more sympathetic to him.
Yeah, yes, exactly. But they're starting to Beck is starting to warm up to him and everything. It's a slow burn on their friendship, but I do love it. I really do love it.
Yeah,
I feel like genuine. It's slower than Riggs and Murtaugh's, like when the Riggs and Murtaugh bond quicker than Beck and Gallagher do.
True.
Backstage at the harem room, Brenda is smoking a cigarette when Miller walks into the room. She tries to kick him out, but he grabs her by the face as she screams. Outside, we see multiple patrol cars are now parked on the block, and officers are waiting outside the doors of the club. They are looking for Miller, so they don't have a problem letting Brenda in her skimpy outfit leave the establishment. She's carrying a large bag. It's the guns, but they are more concealed now because it's like her duffel bag. As she's walking away, we see that the dress she's wearing shows off most of her ass, like it's a giant hole where her ass is.
It's not very tasteful.
It's not, you know what? It's hot, but it's not very sexy, Jack.
Oh, I'm going to abstain from any comments.
I know you are.
But I could tell you some stories.
Daddy teacher daddy. Ew, that was gross. I'll never say that again.
Papa Z.
You said that to me and Lee this morning, and I almost threw up in my mouth when I read that.
Why?
I don't know.
Papa Z knows what's up.
Don't ever say that. You don't say Papa Z, and I won't say Daddy Teacher. Just then a woman screams from inside the club, and all the cops go rushing in as Brenda walks down the block. As she does, two douchebags hit on her. One is a very young Boyd Banks, who we saw in Bruiser just recently, the shorter one.
Oh, yeah.
Because he has hair and everything.
Wow, yeah. Wow, that's a trip.
And I think he's uncredited because he's not even on IMDb, but he's so unique looking.
Yeah, these guys deserve what they get, or the one guy does.
Yeah. She almost gets in the Ferrari, but cops tell her it's part of an investigation. I like that they don't stop her, don't think that she's like a part of it. She's like, they're like, no, you can't get in that car. No,
Yeah, because back then they didn't care.
Yeah. The one douchebag says he has a nice car she can ride in. It's in the lot around the corner. Cut to Beck, Gallagher, and Willis examining the crime scene. Miller's dead body is on the floor, but Brenda is nowhere to be found. They think that Miller bled to death, judging by the tape wound around his wrist. A patrol officer brings Gallagher aspirin and water and says that Detective Beck thought he might need it. And it's another subtle joke that I didn't pick up on the first time I saw it. Gallagher looks at the pills and then drops the pills into the water, much to the patrol officer's amazement. Because, that's not how you do aspirin.
No, I love it, though. It's great.
Yeah. He's learning, but he's not learning sort of that well.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a dark comedy.
No.
Again, no. It's an action it's an action horror sci-fi with a slight element of comedy to it.
Yes.
Cut to a shitty Cadillac rocking in the parking lot,
which I believe is the parking lot of the Egyptian theater. By the way, the back of the Egyptian theater.
I missed the
Pretty
Egyptian.
sure.
You and I have seen some great movies there, including Nightbreed: The Cabal Cut.
Yeah, we saw some great movies there too.
Fuck you. I mean, look, Nightbreed is great. We both hated the Cabal Cut. Guys and gals, the reason the Cabal Cut was so painful to watch was because they used like VHS footage to put back in the old footage, like it wasn't processed. But like if the scene that what you saw in the theater, like in a theatrical cut, had like 2 seconds of new footage put into it, they wouldn't just splice in that 2 seconds of VHS footage. They used the whole VHS scene. So we were watching on a movie screen a terrible dub of a dub of a dub of a dub of a dub on a giant movie screen. And dude, I could barely see what the fuck was going on.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know, Robert, I know you're listening, and I know you love the Cabal Cut. And
you were at that screening, apparently.
Yeah, and with Scott Zillner as well. And we love Nightbreed, and it was like they had put all the footage in, but they weren't really ready to screen it yet. Like it hadn't been,
processed
cleaned up
at all.
processed.
Yeah, cleaned up.
Yeah. So, I mean, it would have been nice. I would have preferred to watch that on a TV at home versus, because it was like, 2.5 hours long or something like that. It was really long.
And 80% of it was that footage.
Yeah, it was hard to watch. You got to admit, Robert, we love you, dude, but you got to admit it was rough to watch.
It was rough. I mean, and I'm a diehard Nightbreed fan. I have the mask, the Decker mask that my grandma made for me. So it was great to see, but even I was like going, oh God, this is horrible.
Right. So I will say one of my fondest moments at the Egyptian is seeing G.I. Joe the movie and Transformers the movie back to back with the voice actors there in attendance, many of whom were on Transformers and G.I. Joe back in the day doing a Q&A. That was amazing.
Yeah, and we saw they lived there with Alan Howarth doing the little concert at the beginning.
Right.
Although I went when I saw it, I was in a horrible place emotionally and mentally, and I'm just thank you, Zach, for still being my friend after that horrible day.
That's why I didn't bring it up, but apparently you did. So there you go.
I just like being honest about things.
I'm just being honest. Wow, the songs that are coming out.
I think honesty and growth is important.
Honesty is such a lonely word. Is it though?
So yeah, cut to the shitty Cadillac rocking and rolling in the parking lot of the Egyptian. Brenda is fucking the douchebag to death.
Literally.
Yep. She shoves his dead body out of the car, then looks at herself in the rearview mirror. Then Brenda starts playing with her own breasts and smiling. And I guess I'd probably do the same if I was the alien.
I'm sure you would.
She then speeds out of the lot and away from the harem club. Back at the club, Beck is talking to the dancer that found Miller's body. She says she saw Brenda walk out on her way in, and there was the guy on the floor. Beck asks if she's ever seen Miller with Brenda at the club, and the dancer says, no way she'd have anything to do with a creep like that. Gallagher interrupts the interrogation and shows him a picture of Brenda. We need to find her. The detective says, you trying to tell me she's a part of this? The FBI agent nods yes. Willis walks up to them and says, hey, Tom, you ain't gonna believe this. Beck kind of rolls his eyes and says, we have another stiff in the parking lot. He's like, Jesus Christ.
Bow, 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 bow.
Perfect. Cut to Sanchez, Willis, Beck, and Gallagher looking at the dead douchebag on the ground. Beck takes Gallagher to the side and says, in a span of 12 hours, I've got 5 bodies, not counting Miller, who dies because he runs out of blood. A stripper screws some guy to death, steals his car, and takes off. Gallagher looks at him without blinking. Beck continues, I want to ask you, am I crazy, or does this seem a little bizarre? Gallagher cracks a smile and says, yeah, it's a little bizarre. The detective says, and I love this line, I knew that. I just wanted to know if you knew that.
I love that, yeah.
By the way, they just announced they're releasing Seinfeld Complete Series on 4K. As much as I love Seinfeld, I don't plan on picking it up because I don't think they're going to restore the old aspect ratio. I think it'll probably be the widescreen aspect ratio that's been on Netflix and everything like that. I still have my old DVDs box set, which are the original aspect ratio, so I'll just keep that.
Yeah. But you don't need to do 4K for TV. Come on.
No.
Who cares? It's just, that's a cash grab.
On the flip side of that coin, dude, I pre-ordered and it's shipping now. Unfortunately, I'm not home. Monsters, the TV series DVD from Diabolique DVD. I pre-ordered it and it's coming, and that's on DVD. I don't fucking need that on Blu-ray or 4K.
Cool, that's awesome. Now release GoBots in the Battle of the Rock Lords.
Seriously.
Come on.
Cut to Brenda driving down the street. A patrol car sees her and turns on their lights and pursues the stolen car. At the parking lot, Gallagher and Beck get into Gallagher's Porsche and drive off. Back in Hollywood, Brenda stops the car and 2 officers get out of theirs with their guns drawn. They tell her to step out of the car with her hands up. Brenda steps out and starts rubbing her body seductively. That's how I get out of a ticket. Ooh.
Literally how I start my morning.
I bet. One of the officers says it's going to be one of those nights. They lower their guns and Brenda pulls out an automatic shotgun and lights the car up. Both officers dive for cover. Brenda gets back in her car and speeds off. By the way, all the gun stuff in this movie is great. Like, it's just, you can see the impact of the bullets and everything. You know, some movies, you know, they're not, or some directors and maybe DPs aren't as good at shooting action and making the guns feel powerful. Not this movie. The guns feel like they actually have weight and force to them, which is important because when when the alien gets shot, you also want to like understand that they're taking those hits too.
Yeah, totally agree. And the guns feel, no pun intended, impactful.
Yes.
Wasn't there was a gun in Alien Nation? Didn't it put like giant holes through the car? Yeah, and then James Caan's partner or his buddy or something gets blasted through the chest or something like that. Like it's like a super high powered gun that they use. It's like their whatever alien gun or something. Anyways, again, just reminded me of that.
And Blade Runner, Decker's gun, you know, Harrison Ford's gun, it's got, you know, it's kind of a little pistol, but it shoots like massive holes and things. You know, it's all, I love that gun. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. I love that shit. Gallagher slows down as they pass the shot up police car, and Beck says, "Holy shit, I'd say we're going the right way." Gallagher punches it. Our reluctant partners quickly catch up to Brenda, who takes out a pistol and starts shooting at them as she drives. Beck returns fire and hits the trunk. Gallagher tells him to try for one of the tires. Beck says that's what he's trying to do. Why don't you try? Gallagher tells him to hold the wheel while he pulls out his gun. The FBI agent leans out the window and slowly aims. He shoots and blows out one of the tires. Brenda's car, and again, the car chase scenes in this movie are good too. Like the action in this film is spectacular.
It's definitely an action movie with sci-fi horror elements.
Action is definitely its first genre.
Yeah, for sure.
Brenda's car goes crashing into an empty clothing store. Gallagher and Beck draw their guns and make their way up to the building. Gallagher says he's going in, and Beck says he'll cover him. The FBI agent says it would be safer if he didn't. He notices that Beck is annoyed, and he says, "All right, cover me." Beck, even more annoyed now, says, "Do you want me to fucking cover you or not?" Gallagher says,
I love that.
I know. Gallagher says, "I need you to cover me." "Fine, I'll cover you." But at first I was like, well, I don't really need to track this. I'm like, but you do, because you see how they gel as a partner later at the shootout scene, or, you know, later at the hotel when they say, all right, on 3, we're going to go in. Like, they gel better later, and you need these moments to see how that all comes together later.
Yeah, it's callback.
Yep, exactly. The two men make their way to the car, and she's not in it. They then move deeper into the clothing store and find a warehouse with a whole bunch of mannequins. As they are clearing it, Brenda opens fire on them with her shotgun from above. Beck and Gallagher return fire and hit her multiple times, but Brenda is unfazed. Beck notices this. Once she's out of bullets, Brenda throws down her shotgun and walks out a door that leads to the building's stairs. The two partners follow her blood trail up the roof. Beck says, "She's bleeding to death. Why doesn't she go down?" Gallagher says they have to get her before she dies. Beck says, "Why don't we wait until after she's dead?" Beck and Gallagher make their way to the roof. They cautiously look around but don't see Brenda. They split up to cover more ground. As Beck is looking over the ledge of the building, Brenda pops out with her machine gun and shoots at Gallagher. He runs to cover, and Beck shoots her in the shoulder. Brenda shoots at the detective, hitting him in the shoulder and sending him over the ledge. Beck grabs a pole and hangs there, yelling. He tries climbing up, but can't because of his injuries. Below, more cops arrive on the scene. Brenda aims her machine gun over the edge and is about to shoot Beck when Gallagher shoots her in the back. The impact makes her drop the gun. Gallagher helps Beck back onto the roof, then reloads his gun and keeps shooting as Brenda tries to get away, which is cool because he just helps him up, quickly reloads, and just starts pow, 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 pow. Like, he doesn't even like take a breather, you know?
Yeah, it's so cool.
Beck watches as she takes hit after hit after hit, but doesn't go down. Brenda, by the side of the roof, eventually stops and looks at Gallagher. The FBI agent takes a small silver gun out of his pocket and points it at the ex-stripper. So at this point, moving forward, I just call that the noisy cricket from Men in Black, because I think Men in Black ripped this like sort of design off, the little pistol.
I'm like, as we're dissecting this film, I'm thinking of all these movies that have come out after the fact. Like, yeah, Men in Black. In Alien Nation, James Caan's character injures his wrist. You remember he's got like a sprained wrist or something from like, so there's like this element of him being injured as well. You know, the main guy. I don't know. There's just like elements that get picked up later on, which is totally fine. But yeah, that's a direct ripoff, like a direct homage.
But yeah, I'm going to refer to this gun as the Noisy Cricket moving forward. And I know in previous discussions, Zach, and maybe it was off air, maybe it was on air, but I do know you've mentioned how influential The Hidden is on movies that came after it. I think we can feel the DNA of this film like all over. You just know people watched and were like, oh, that was freaking awesome. Let's do that.
Yeah, and I'm just telling people now, get the physical copy of this because who knows if what's going to happen to it, you know?
Yeah, and I don't even know where it's streaming, but yeah, exactly. Yeah, and maybe if enough people buy the physical copy, somebody like you said, Vinegar Syndrome or somebody will pick it up and we can actually get or Arrow, somebody pick this thing up, you know?
Yeah.
Kino, somebody.
Imprint I could see Imprint. Imprint seems to be the dark horse in the Blu-ray community.
They're the ones that put out the Bruiser 4K that I got, right? Imprint, I think.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Umbrella.
Oh, Umbrella. Yep. I feel like Umbrella's getting bigger and bigger these days, dude.
Region coded, but they're really not. So every time they say, you know, region coded, I think that's just to cover their asses. I don't know how long that's going to fly until somebody says can't do this anymore, but they're doing it.
I mean, here's the thing. Blu-rays are getting phased out anyways, and 4Ks are across the board region free. So I think Umbrella kind of came at the right time at the end of the Blu-ray era. At this point, no one's going to like kind of care.
So do I have to get a 4K TV now and a 4K player?
Not technically. I mean, well, my PS5 is a 4K player, and I also use that as my media center, and I'm not suggesting to go buy one of those. But I think at some point it is helpful to have a 4K player because you can then buy UK 4Ks, and they will play. Like I have, I picked up the Second Sight, It Follows. And that's region 2, that's UK. I think Second Sight's a UK company. The Blu-ray will not play in my PlayStation because it's region coded, but the 4K will because 4Ks are all region free. So there you go. So the answer is, as some Zach's gonna have to buy a 4K player, but you don't have to buy a 4K TV. Like it'll still play on your TV. Like you just won't probably get the highest quality you can get out of it, but it'll still play on your TV though.
You won't get the highest fidelity hi-fi as Buck Swope would say in Boogie Nights.
Is he what's
Buck's
his name?
Super Stereo Store.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Come inside us. Come inside us. Buck's Super Stereo World. Come inside us.
So Brenda she's all shot up and everything, and she kind of gags out the words, and you don't know why she's kind of like gagging. We do now after you've seen the movie. It's because the body's dying, so the alien's trying to come out, but we know it can't because Gallagher has him dead to rights with the Noisy Cricket. So she's kind of gagging out these words. She goes, "You think it's over now? You're wrong." Gallagher just stands there aiming his gun because he's waiting, to get his shot. She looks like she's keeping down her vomit, and she says, "I'm not coming out yet. I'll kill you first." And then Beck is watching the whole time. Just then, Brenda runs for the ledge and jumps through a neon sign to the ground below. Gallagher goes running, leaving Beck in shock on the roof. That was a fantastic stunt, by the way.
Yeah, it's great. This whole sequence, I think this is like the most famous sequence in the movie. And now the demise of Claudia Christian. So it's great. I love it.
I wonder if Patricia Tallman did that stunt. Because, she was mostly a stunt person in Hollywood.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I know about the cornea injury. I feel like she also injured her shoulder or arm or something too. I feel like Patricia Tallman told us that story, but I don't know.
Yeah, good
I might be Mendeleing my own effect.
I love good phrase. I like that, buddy.
Yeah,
you got Mendeled.
I got Mandela by hitting it.
On the street below, we see Lieutenant Masterson pull up in his station wagon next to the other patrol cars. He has his dog Roy with him, and he's in his tracksuit. When he opens the door, Roy goes running over to Brenda's dead body. Her eyes suddenly open, and she grabs Roy's head.
That's your homage to The Thing.
Yep. Willis briefs Masterson as they run around back to Brenda's body. Inside the building, we see Gallagher running down the stairs past the SWAT team that's going upstairs. As Willis is checking Brenda's body, Gallagher goes running up to him, telling him to get away from the body. Willis says, "Party's over, pal. She's dead." The FBI agent looks for signs of the alien in his eyes, but doesn't see anything. He frantically asks who was here, who touched the body. As Gallagher stands there defeated, we see Roy the dog looking at him and growling. Beck comes walking out of the building holding his arm. He looks over at Gallagher and says, "It's not over, is it?" The FBI agent shakes his head and says no. The detective says he wants an explanation. Gallagher says an explanation won't help him. Beck says, "I'll decide that." Gallagher says, "What I'm after is still out there, and I don't know where to start." He starts walking away, and Beck tells Willis to arrest the FBI agent. Willis reluctantly puts cuffs on Lloyd before he gets in his Porsche.
Yeah, it's cool because you can tell Willis doesn't want to do it, but he's like, gotta do it. Boss's orders.
Yep, exactly. Back at the empty police station, Beck calls his wife and tells her he's okay. I'm fine. If I wasn't fine, someone else would call you, wouldn't they?" He tells her he'll be home soon as Willis walks up to his desk with Agent Gallagher's things. His ID, his pistol, and who in the hell knows what this is. Willis holds up the noisy cricket. Beck tells him to drop it off at the lab so they can figure out what it is. As Willis leaves, Detective Brim sits down next to Beck and drops a bombshell. Seattle FBI agent Lloyd Gallagher was killed in a forest fire about a month ago with a friend of his named Robert Stone. They were hunting in Olympic National Forest the weekend they had that big forest fire. Bureau figured Stone was dead, never found his body, just figured it burned up in the fire. Beck dryly asks, "Is that all?" Brim says he had the Bureau send him a picture of Stone. Beck looks at it and it's Lloyd. Evidently, Mr. Stone has taken over the identity of his dead friend. Beck sits there pondering the situation and Detective Brim goes home. And another, world building for me is maybe that forest fire started because his spaceship crash landed or something. Like, there's so much stuff that happened that, you're sort of like, is this relevant to what our story is? Is it not real?
Right.
Is it just happenstance? Like, what is it,
Right, yeah. There's a lot of what ifs, but I like that. That's the world building you get to do.
Mm-hmm. You can fill in the gaps if you want to.
Right.
Fill in your gap. Daddy teacher.
Papa Z.
God. Seriously, I almost threw up saying it. Cut to the dog Roy looking at himself in the mirror at Lieutenant Masterson's house. That's funny because he's just sitting there staring at himself.
Yeah, because that's what dogs do.
Yep. We see Masterson walk to the fridge in his pajamas and eat an apple. Good for him for eating an apple.
Yeah, he's trying.
Because he looks like a guy that doesn't eat apples.
He looks like a guy who needs to eat more apples.
How about them
tough.
apples?
Yeah, how about you like apples? How about them apples? Boom.
Just then, Roy jumps through the door and hits the police officer in the back. Like he blows through the door, like explodes it, knocking his head into the fridge and rendering him unconscious. We know what will happen next. I'm just waiting for you to be in the kitchen and Fozzie just jumps on the back of your head. And then you continue the podcast as the alien.
Yep. I want to be president. Okay, Zach, what else? I like cars.
I want a Ferrari.
That's okay. Rest of the episode, I'm going to be like that.
Back at the empty station, an officer brings Gallagher to Beck's desk and undoes the handcuffs. Beck dismisses the officer and says to Gallagher, "Crazy thing. I was starting to like you." He tells Gallagher to sit and lays it all out. The fire, how he knows he's really Stone, and the stolen Porsche, which is probably the only true thing you've told me so far.
I like Porsches.
Beck is pissed and wants an explanation for everything that's happened these past few days. Gallagher calmly says, Miller, the stripper, DeVries, we're the same, and it's not human. I've been after it for a long time. Now it's here, on Earth, in your city. Beck asks if we're talking spacemen. Gallagher nods yes. The not FBI agent says, the way it works is it finds a body, gets inside, uses it to move around. It stays in that body until that body is so damaged it has to find a new body. That's the only time I can kill it, when it's between two bodies. He says he missed his chance when it came out of the stripper, but now he doesn't have to look for it anymore. It knows I'm here. It'll come after me. Gallagher says he needs his noisy cricket. He doesn't say that, but he says he needs his gun. It's the only thing that can kill it. Gallagher says, I've been tracking it for 9 years. Your time. I love that. Another great piece of dialogue. Beck corrects him. Our time. Because, you're still, I don't believe that you're an alien. Or it's like, you know what I mean?
He doesn't believe him, yeah.
Gallagher looks disappointed and says, I guess a career in the police didn't really prepare you for this, did it? Beck says, yes, it did. Cut to Gallagher back in the holding cell. Beck says to him, we'll try again later. Cut to Beck being dropped off at home in the morning. His arm is in a sling and Barbara runs to him crying. Fade to Beck laying in bed thinking. And then you can tell that this is the end of Act 2 because it's the lowest point for our two heroes. This movie, I think, is equal. Gallagher and equal Beck are both of our heroes, and this is their lowest point. Their friendship is gone. Gallagher is in jail. Beck's been shot. The end of Act 2 going into the climax of Act 3 is always the lowest point for your lead character or characters. And, once you sort of start learning that, you can see in movies when it happens like clockwork and you're like, okay, we're at the end of Act 2 right now.
Yep. And then you're like, oh, Act 3 is, okay, well, here we go.
And Act 3 in this movie is fucking amazing.
It's bonkers.
Yeah, do you like the stripper stuff, like the Brenda stuff better, or the police station stuff?
I like this sequence here, this police sequence. This is great.
This is my favorite, and I kind of actually like it more than the Terminator's police sequence, because there's sort of more to it.
Yeah, but there would be no sequence like this unless it wasn't for Terminator.
100% agreed, dude. I feel like as much as we talk about other movies having, the hidden imprinted on them, the hidden would not have happened. Or maybe it would have been a very different movie if it wasn't for the Terminator.
Right. Well, the score of this film is very reminiscent to Brad Fiedel's score in the Terminator.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Back at the busy police station, Masterson walks in the front door. An officer remarks that the lieutenant is supposed to be off today. As Masterson is standing in the lobby, Lieutenant Flynn, remember that's Clu Gulager's character, walks up to him and introduces him to Senator Holt's assistant, played by Lynn Shay. Which, Zach, do we need to call her out? I mean, she's been in a million things.
Oh, you guys know who Lynn Shay is. She's pretty iconic at this point because she's just in everything. She's wasn't she Tan Lady in something about
something
Mary?
About Mary? Yeah. And she's Bob Shay's sister, so that's why she's always in a lot of New Line stuff.
She's friends with Tim Sullivan, who I just had on Tales from the Video Store on $2 late fee, because she was in Detroit Rock City and 2001 cool. Maniacs, and yeah.
That's awesome, dude. That makes sense because Robert Englund was also in 2001 Maniacs, right? So
right.
Did New Line produce that, or is it just sort of knowing New Line people or whatever?
Just knowing New Line people because Tim Sullivan was working at New Line.
There you go. Once you start understanding all these behind the scenes pieces sort of fall into place.
Peel back the onion and all that comes out.
All the daddy teachers come out.
Papa Z.
Oh God, help us. Help us all. Help us all.
Save yourself. Save yourself.
Masterson says,
"Halt, the one everyone applauds. Where's the speech?"
Flynn says, "Park Plaza. You know that." Cut to Barbara dropping her husband off at the station. Beck is still nursing his arm. Cut to the police technician looking at the noisy cricket in the ballistics room. He puts the weapon in his hand and it emits a beam of energy at the wall next to him. It also makes a humming sound. We see that Masterson and Gallagher both hear the sound. Just then the wall explodes, sending the police tech flying back. And I love how like it doesn't take long for the third act's action to start.
Now we're like, let's go. Let's go.
Everyone goes running to where the explosion came from. They think someone detonated a bomb in the station. As two officers pick up the technician, Masterson pockets the noisy cricket as well as a grenade. He also grabs a machine gun and a bazooka. We see Beck walking around asking other officers what's happening when someone from behind him yells,
"You!"
Beck looks at Masterson and says, "You? Lieutenant, what's going on around here?" Because I love that because, like, yeah, he doesn't know his name, but, you know. And then but even Beck's like, why are you referring to me as you, you know?
Yeah.
Masterson asks,
"Where's the other one? The one you were with?"
Beck is confused. He says Lloyd is in lockup. You know that. Masterson points the machine gun at Beck and says,
"Listen, I already shot you once. I can hardly wait to do it again. Now let's go."
The lieutenant leads a stunned Beck down the hall at gunpoint. And now at this point, Beck, there's no questions. Like, and I like how this sort of plays out because it's his captain or it's his lieutenant. And there's no chance that, you know, it just wouldn't make sense otherwise. The only thing that makes sense is everything Gallagher is saying is true.
Right.
Just then, Zach, come on, buddy. You're going to have to call him out. But just then, Officer Branscombe Richmond pops out and asks, "What's going on?" Masterson shoots him dead. And then where do we know him from?
I mean, Branscombe Richmond, we were just talking about him. We talk about Branscombe Richmond all the time. He's in everything.
Every fucking thing from the 80s. Now, was he more of like, he was more of a stunt guy, but he's one of those stunt guys that kind of starts to become an actor too, right?
Yeah, late 80s, early 90s is when he starts becoming more, you know, well recognizable on screen. But God, the guy's been in everything. I love that guy. Well, you got to get him on one of our shows eventually. He's going to pop up eventually.
Well, he wants you to go out to Hawaii to interview him.
I know.
That's the only way he'll do the interview.
It's not going to be hard talking Kristen into going to Maui, but that's where he wants to do it. He's like, come to Maui and we'll do an interview. I'm like, okay.
All right. Why not? Going on. All right. So Masterson shoots him, so he gets shot dead. And of course, that's why. So like, he's an actor that does stunts, so he can do like his own stunt right here. You know?
Yep.
Willis and Sanchez draw their guns and follow. Beck yells to Willis to stay back. It's not Masterson. As Willis and Sanchez close in, Sanchez yells, "Now, Beck!" And the detective grabs the noisy cricket from Masterson's belt. Masterson hits him to the ground with his gun, and Sanchez and Willis light their old boss up. He falls over dead, or so they think. As Sanchez checks the body, Beck yells for him to get away from it, but it's too late. Masterson literally shoots Sanchez in the dick. Now, I don't think that's how it was intended, but that's the way the shot sort of came out, like where the gun is sort of aiming. It's right in his fucking dick, dude.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be his gut, but it's a nut shot.
I mean, and you know what? If you shoot my dick off, just kill me. I don't want to live.
You shot my dick off.
21 Jump Street.
Yeah.
It's there. Pick it up. Beck runs down the stairs to the holding cells. On the way, he forcefully takes the gun from another detective. When he gets to the holding cells, the officer on duty won't let him in unless he checks his gun in with them. Beck walks over to the fellow officer and takes the keys by gunpoint and forces him to buzz the gate open. As Beck is running past other inmates to Gallagher's cell, we see a young Danny Trejo talking about his phone call. I mean, dude, again, like left and right, I'm like, how many fucking people are in this movie?
Yeah, very young Danny Trejo, post-prison.
Yeah. And I mean, pre-Desperado, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. Penitentiary 3 came out around the same time. Yeah. You want to see a bonker movie, go watch Penitentiary 3. That is wild.
It's weird, wild stuff.
Yes.
Oh, God, it's great. So, the detective says to the jailed alien, "I just saw Masterson dump 2 cops. He took 6 hits at point-blank range, and he's not going down. Is the real Masterson dead?" Gallagher says, "Yeah." Beck unlocks the cell and hands the alien his noisy cricket. The band is back together, baby!
Still rocking America! Oh, yeah! All right!
And it is important for the viewer, and because of it's going to be Willis in a little bit, it is important for the viewer and for Beck to understand that their friends are gone. Once the alien is in there, they're gone.
Yeah, the emotional connection. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's why all the scenes earlier fucking matter.
Right.
Just then, we see a shot-up Masterson walk up to the locked door of the jail. He tells the cops to let him in, but they refuse, and he blows the door open with a grenade. Beck and Gallagher take cover in an empty cell as Masterson shoots at them with his machine gun. The alien FBI agent takes a round to the leg. Masterson yells out,
Alaheg, before I kill you, I'm curious. How did you find me?
Gallagher, a.k.a. Alaheg, says, you left an angry partner for dead on Altier.
A mistake.
That's what it said. Beck unloads his clip into Masterson, but it doesn't kill him. Frustrated, he asks why Gallagher isn't using his gun. The alien says it's not that simple. Masterson calls out,
Alaheg, how do you like being human?
Beck looks at his partner in disbelief. And so now he's again piecing it together. And I realize, like, yeah, Gallagher never really comes out and says in that, last scene that, who he is. He's just been chasing the man. But I do like how now Beck, okay, he's pieced it all together now.
Right.
Gallagher smiles and says, it's all right. Masterson yells back,
better than being Altarian. Altarians are a filthy people. We could take over this place if we wanted. They have nothing here to stop us.
Just then, Danny Trejo yells, yo, hippie, what kind of dude are you? Masterson shoots him dead, then Beck shoots Masterson. The lieutenant returns fire until he's out of bullets. As Beck and Gallagher hold up in their cell for cover, Masterson pops in the doorway with his bazooka aimed at them and says,
bye.
I love that. Beck shoots. I know. Beck shoots him in the forehead, spinning him to the left as the bazooka fires. It blows an exit hole in the wall of the jail. And this is another, I think you're right, the gore, because when it shoots him in the head, the blood, sprays out like a faucet. So I think that's kind of the stuff holding it back from, mainstream audiences.
Yeah. I think that's agreed.
When the smoke clears, Masterson is gone. Gallagher says he's going to change soon and they need to be there. Beck looks at his partner and says, who the hell are you? Do you feel pain? Gallagher says he does. Beck looks at the noisy cricket and asks, why didn't you use it? Gallagher shoots Beck with the laser, but it does nothing. He says, wrong composition. Doesn't work on human flesh. I was like, I like that.
Yeah, it's cool, but then you realize, okay, they blew up that wall. Okay, so it just doesn't work on humans.
Right, yeah. Yeah. A little, just a smidge. This movie is pretty fucking tight, but a little smidge of an inconsistency there.
Right.
Our two heroes walk out of the jail and follow Masterson's blood trail upstairs to the station. When they get to Masterson's office, Gallagher tells Beck to cover him. This is the part I was like earlier. So this is now showing how they work together. So Gallagher tells Beck to cover him. The detective tells him to go low and then counts down from 3, and they both pop out to discover Detective Brim checking Masterson's body. So, these are the little things that I love about this movie. The fact that they didn't work well together with the mannequin place, with, not covering each other, and now they're like a well-oiled machine. I want this partnership to go on forever. I want this to be Alien Nation. I want them to be working the beat together,
Yeah, it's making me think about revising. I thought I did a buddy cop episode with Diallo once for a watch list way back in the day. And now I feel like I want to do a part 2 buddy cops because I'm like, this is good. Dead Heat.
Yes.
Think about the partnerships from all you patron supporters out there, 80s Kids Unite topic. It could be your favorite 80s partnerships.
Yeah, that would be a good one, dude. That'd be fucking really good, man.
Yeah, one each.
Yep. Yeah, one each. But would that be 5 of them? I guarantee you Lethal Weapon would be on there for sure.
Yeah.
But one of us is going to bring this to that table. So
for sure.
Gallagher quickly determines Brim isn't the alien and checks Masterson's body, then asks if he saw anyone leave. Willis said he was going to get a medic. Gallagher looks at his stunned partner and says he's sorry. I like that because now we know, Beck knows.
They know.
They know that it's sorry, Willis is dead, essentially. Cut to Senator Holt and his entourage pulling up to Park Plaza Hotel in his limo. Back at the station, Beck gets a call telling him someone spotted Willis. He says, where? Cut back to the Park Plaza Hotel, and Willis is using his credentials to get past the senator's escort and into the building. Cut to Beck and Gallagher speeding down the road in his Porsche. Back at the hotel, we see Willis walking up the lobby stairs after the senator. This is where I noticed that him licking his lips. It just, it didn't really, I don't think they even needed it. Like, we understood. We didn't need it.
Yeah, it's just like you don't need it.
Behind him, he hears the police escort stop Beck and Gallagher at the entrance. He looks back, then keeps walking towards his target. Flynn lets the men into the hotel and asks what the hell's going on. Cut to Senator Holt and Lynn Shay in the By the way, I don't even know what her character's name is. I'm just calling her Lynn Shay. She's his assistant.
Yeah.
So they're by the elevators with two guards. They get a code red over their headsets and draw their guns. They say they're going to take him out the back entrance. As Willis is walking through the hotel, a patrol officer sees him and tells him he has orders to disarm and detain the detective. When he gets closer, Willis takes out his gun and shoots the officer. Beck and Gallagher hear the gunshots and go running with about 6 other armed guards following them. The senator's armed escorts put Holt and Lynn Shay in a small back room behind the laundry area and tell them to stay while they guard the entrance. We see Willis make his way through the hotel, gunning down anyone that gets in his way. When Beck catches up to him, he calls out his friend's name, but Willis only replies with bullets. Good blood packets, people getting shot is great. I mean, there's a squib everywhere. Like, every hit has a squib.
Yeah, it's great. This whole sequence goes really fast too, by the way.
Oh, fuck yeah, it does. I mean, dude, the climax, this whole movie, like we said, aside from maybe the dinner scene, is the slowest part. Everything else just flies by.
Yeah, agreed.
Willis takes multiple shots from different officers, but keeps walking towards Holt's hiding place. Beck, Gallagher, and another guard have a shootout with Willis in the kitchen. The guard is killed, and Beck runs out of bullets. He holds his arms up, and Willis shoots Beck in the stomach twice. Gallagher watches in horror as his friend slumps over. Willis goes back to pursuing Senator Holt while Flynn and his men arrive in the kitchen. As Willis walks through the laundry room, one of the two senator's guards tries to stop him but gets killed. The other guard yells for them both to get in the closet before he gets gunned down. I actually like this little touch. Holt just throws Lynn Shay into the closet but stands his ground against Willis because I think he knows it's like a dead end. I'm not going to be able to save both of us, at least save her, which is probably better than most politicians would do.
President Biden would do that.
Yes, he would. Fuck yeah, he would.
Grandpa Joe, love that guy.
Grandpa Joe. Oh,
sorry,
Joe.
Sorry for the 10 of you that don't agree with us, but I love Grandpa Joe.
Me too. I do too, buddy. He, not many people would relinquish power for the sake of the nation.
Agreed.
Lynn Shay watches as the police officer walks up to Holt. Cut to Gallagher running into the laundry room, but the senator and Lynn Shay are being escorted out by guards and the police officers. He sees Willis's body laying on the floor dead with his mouth open. Gallagher begins to follow the senator. Holt looks back at Gallagher and licks his lips. And I guess because at this point we're not supposed to know if it's Lynn Shay or Holt is why the only licking of the lips kind of matters.
It's a quick reveal. Yeah, this again, the last 5 minutes of this movie go by so fast because it's almost like, I don't know, it feels a little rushed, but it feels like if this was a little longer, they would have taken their time to build up which body he was in.
Right.
But the sense of urgency now at this point, is ramped up.
Yeah, agreed. The FBI agent knows he can't get to the senator, so he goes to check on Beck, who's being taken to an ambulance outside. Beck asks his alien friend if they got him. Gallagher says, yeah. And, when I was watching this, I was like, well, I know he lied to him, just to make him feel better. But now I understand that he lied to him to allow him to die peacefully, believing that he accomplished his job.
Right. Yeah, he knows.
Cut to the senator's news conference later that day. A reporter asks why Willis tried assassinating the senator, and Flynn says they currently have no motive. Another reporter asks if the senator still plans to run for president. Lynn Shay says the senator needs time to process what happened, but Holt cuts her off and says,
I want to be president.
Everyone in the room cheers and he smiles. We see Gallagher enter the hotel with a duffel bag. He shows his FBI badge, but when someone asks what's inside the bag, he hits the guy and runs into the conference room. Police officers and guards shoot him multiple times, but he keeps running. Even Holt grabs a gun from Flynn and shoots Gallagher. Gallagher takes the flamethrower Sanchez had earlier in the movie out of his duffel bag, falls to his knees, and lights up Senator Holt. Everyone watches in silence as the would-be president falls over dead. Just then a reporter yells, "Look!" as the alien comes out of the senator's mouth. Gallagher takes out his noisy cricket and shoots his enemy. It explodes, and he slumps over from his wounds. So I think that there was an alternate ending. There was not much available on the Blu-ray, so I don't really know what that alternate ending was. I just know that it has something to do with the alien getting away in Holt. So I feel like maybe this was all a reshoot at the end, because it also feels like a separate vignette away from the movie.
Yeah. And again, it's like super quick. He now has no choice but to kill him, and he's able to get his kill in there. It's a great moment though, and it's very satisfying. I like that they didn't leave it open to a sequel. Even though they did make a sequel, but I like that it's very like neatly wrapped up.
I agree, dude. Like, one of the reasons I freaking love this movie is because this ending is satisfying. You see the alien, you see the noisy cricket in action. You see Sanchez's flamethrower. Like it's almost as if it was written this way. So I don't know what the difference would have been.
Right, I agree.
Cut to Beck in a coma in the hospital. Barbara's crying. She goes out to the hallway where their daughter is waiting. We see Gallagher in a hospital gown watching from another room. The alien FBI agent quietly walks into Beck's room and looks at him. Just then, Beck's vitals crash and he appears to die, and I think he does die.
Yeah.
Gallagher leans over his friend, opens his mouth, and a golden light flows from Gallagher's mouth to Beck's. I think he's healing him, but Zach's right. I do now believe he's just taking over the body because there's nothing he can do. So...
with a golden shower.
Yep. The doctor and the Beck family go running into the detective's room because of the monitor going off. They find Gallagher on the floor dead and Beck alive. He wakes up and Barbara goes to his side and kisses him. Then their daughter comes over and holds his hand, but not after staring at him for a long time, like we saw earlier. So credits roll, a banger song that you loved. We kind of talked about the ending earlier, and I do believe you're correct. I'm 100% with you. But yeah, dude, this movie was fucking awesome. Final thoughts, having watched this pretty much your entire life.
I mean, I love it now as much as I loved it back then. Maybe I love it even more now because there's an emotional pull to it. But it's great, and a little bit of a mystery at the end, and what's it going to be like? I would have liked to have seen a proper sequel. We didn't get it. But it's such a good film. Phenomenal cast, great soundtrack, great writing, great directing, underrated gem. This is a definition of an underrated gem.
Yep, this is a cult movie through and through. Rob, thank you so much for bringing it to the table.
Yeah,
thank
Rob,
you for,
great choice.
For making me watch it. It's literally, I'm not fucking kidding. It is now one of my favorite movies of all fucking time. It's well paced. It's well acted. The action is outstanding. T to B, it's an awesome movie. Even the slow dinner scene, I mean, I still enjoy it. I like the character interactions and everything. It's just pacing wise, this movie is so fast paced that a 3 or 4 minute scene that's a little bit slower feels painfully slow because of how fast paced this film is.
Double feature this with Alien Nation. Now I'm going to go watch Alien Nation now and see what other parallels this movie has with it.
Same. Me too. And again, thank you, Rob, so much for bringing this one to the table. Thank you so much for being a supporter of us on Patreon. Guys and gals, if you want to find all the links to everything that we do and a merch store, all our podcatchers and socials and Patreon, you can go to podcastingafterdark.com. That's podcastingafterdark.com. Same for $2 late fee, TWO, $2latefee.com. That's $2latefee.com. You can find Zach's and Dustin's Patreon, their merch store, stores and all that kind of stuff, podcatchers and socials. And Zach, I know you got to run to go pick up Bodie, but can you plug just one movie that you're covering in November?
So we're covering Aspen Extreme on $2 late fee with an interview with Finola Hughes, and it's big. It's big. It's big. You'll want to listen.
Is it big, Zach? You're saying it's big.
It's so big because there's.
So you're saying she moved out.
She moved out. It's big. Yeah, you'll want to listen to this one for many reasons, other than the fact that it's one of my favorite episodes I've edited. And there's a pretty big announcement in the episode, too. You'll want to stay tuned to that. And Corey knows what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So you want to listen to that because there's some big stuff happening. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Know what I mean?
Oh, man. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. And as always,
we'll catch you on the dark side.
Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.
I'm John, and I'm the host of Action Action. Every week, I'm joined by James.
Heyo.
And Dustin.
Hello.
And each week, we review, debate, and rank a different action movie.
We're creating the ultimate list of action movies.
From awful to awesome.
So if you want to hear 3 more white guys with beards talk about action movies.
And argue about where they belong on our list.
And decide you hate us because we made fun of your favorite movie.
Join us every Tuesday, and you can find us on your favorite podcatcher.
And Steven Seagal is a joke.